All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome to Press X Podcast, episode 50. Pretty insane milestone here that we've reached with this podcast. Can't say that I ever imagined it would make it this far. And obviously, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys. So thank you so much for being here. I hope everyone is doing well today. I hope everybody is having a good Sunday. And I hope everybody is ready to discuss a somewhat polarizing, you know what? I shouldn't even say somewhat, a very polarizing week for PlayStation and PlayStation fans. Definitely a lot to dig into today. I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to lead to some very interesting conversation as well as some interesting speculation. And right off the bat, we have Sir Speaks a Lot saying feet times MBG equal MBG feet also rounds up to 4 me. I see you're still trying, man, week over week, trying to get even more and more creative. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe just keep it going, man. Just keep it going, and we'll see how long this feet thing goes for. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for being here. For those who are here now, and for those who may watch once this is done and you're watching it later, please hit that like button. It really does help out the podcast. It's funny because I feel like people who are not heavily involved in YouTube, they really do not know how important likes are. That's why people always ask for them. It has a direct effect on how much your video or whatever content you're creating gets pushed out there for other people to see. So it's an important aspect of growth here on YouTube. So hit that like button. And yeah, so we're going to go over a lot of different topics here. There's a couple things that I actually didn't write down on the topic list that I do want to mention as well. But before I do that, I have to give a big shout out to, well, first of all of my members. Thank you guys so much for being channel members and choosing to support me directly. It goes a very long way, and I really do appreciate it genuinely. And I want to give a shout out to the Play Has No Limits Plus and the Play Has No Limits tier. These are tiers where if you want to just go above and beyond to help give me a little bit of extra support, that's an option for you. So big shout out to my Play Has No Limits Plus tier, Junior Jackson, D. Luffy, and Samuel Payne. Thank you guys so much. And then we have the Play Has No Limits tier. So big shout out to Brandon Chad Perez, Matt Wheatley, Alpha Acer, Brittany Goes Meow, Adrian Pollard, Sayin JT, Jeffrey Hicks, Big Norman 0518, Michael Bradley, Tyson Webb 509, MH, Shaky Shako, Ragin' Whiskey, Space Gambler Jr., Josh Z, The Tiger Man Show, and Sir Speaks a Lot. Thank you all so much for really going above and beyond to help support me directly and support what I do here. So, with that being said, I want to give you a quick rundown of the topics that we're going to be covering over the course of this podcast. I'm probably going to just start out talking a little bit about Outriders just briefly because a lot of people have been bringing this up to me and showing it to me. It's also something that I am kind of interested in. I have played a little bit of the demo, but the main topics, the first topic, I just kind of want to have a broad discussion to see how everybody's feeling. Basically just ask, how are we feeling about Sony and the PlayStation brand as well as the PlayStation 5 after this interesting week? There was a lot that happened. It seemed that Sony has been very quiet up until this point, and they just kind of dropped a lot of different bombshells on its fan base. So we're going to talk about that. The second topic is we're going to focus on the state of play because this has been a very, for some reason, controversial topic. And it's kind of crazy. Like, I did not expect it to garner this much kind of back and forth, but it did. So I just want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the games that we saw that I am very much excited for. The third topic is we're going to be discussing some of the bigger titles that Sony is going to be releasing throughout the next year or two, and how likely it is that they are getting delayed or how likely it is they're going to hit their release dates, and just talk about our general excitement for it in general, and just kind of map out how the rest of the year is looking, as well as maybe 2022. The fourth topic is we are going to be talking about Days Gone as well as other PlayStation exclusives heading to PC this spring. That has also created quite the conversation. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on with Japan Studio, yet another very controversial topic. And then finally, I want to close out by talking a little bit about an interesting report that came out claiming that apparently Kojima did in fact have a horror game in development, but it was going to be a Google Stadia exclusive, and it got canceled. And there's a chance that Phil Spencer may be teasing something to do with Kojima. So stay tuned for all that. Lot to discuss here. The Caped Crusader, you're saying, I get this weird feeling Horizon Forbidden West might get delayed to 2022 because Sony wants more PS5s in people's hands first, with an angry emoji. I'm hoping I'm wrong. Honestly, Caped Crusader, I think that's a fair call and a fair assessment, because the truth is, I'll say this. I think Horizon's saving grace, and the reason why it's much more likely to actually hit its 2021 launch, regardless of how difficult Sony may find it to get PS5s into people's hands, is the fact that it's a PS4 title as well. So that gives me a lot of hope that they're not so much worried about how many units will be out there, what the install base will be like. Because if there's, let's just say Horizon launches at the end of this year, if there's like 10 million, I'm sure there will be way more than 10 million PS5s out there, but just like 10 or 15 million, let's just say 15 million. If there's 15 million PS5s out there by that point, I think Sony will have no worries about how well Horizon's going to sell on the PS5, because it's easily going to sell 10 plus million. And it's also going to sell a ton on PS4 as well. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. But thank you for the super chat. We also have Jamal. You're saying, MBG, can you get back to making content about games/consoles and not defending against what people say? State of play was fine. They are just updates if you read. Well, I do appreciate the constructive criticism. The truth is, man, like week over week, I have to cover. Well, I don't have to, but I want to cover what's being talked about, what's relevant in the realm of PlayStation. And a lot of the things that we've discussed and that we will discuss here today are very much relevant. It's not that I don't want to talk more about games or the console or anything like that, but the truth is, half of what I am talking about pertains to exactly those things. I think the problem is, we are just at a point right now, PlayStation fans, where Sony is clearly delivering some news that not everybody's going to be happy or excited about, and we just have to acknowledge that. I will admit, I do often defend myself maybe a little bit too much, more than I should. That's something I'm trying to stop because there's really no need for it. People who have their opinions of me and people who want to feel the way they feel about me are going to do so regardless of what I say. And those who want to, support me based off of what I say and how I conduct myself, well, I just have to let it speak for it. I have to let myself, just kind of do my thing and let that speak for itself. So I do appreciate it, man. But don't get me wrong. Like once the games start really releasing month over month, and once we kind of get into a better flow, we will definitely be talking more and more about games for sure. And then we have Sir Speaks a Lot. You're saying the fact that Kojima was even thinking about Stadia either means he was high on some very good stuff that I need, or he hit his head on some concrete. I'm not going to lie, man. It does sound pretty crazy. It is worth noting that apparently Kojima did mention how he wants to make a game in the cloud. He did say that at one point. So, yeah, that's what it is, man. We'll talk more about that later. Let me bring up the footage here. You'll probably see the state of play playing in the background. And so I want to dive into the first topic here, which is, again, I just kind of want to ask you guys, and I'll give my thoughts on it, but I want to ask you guys, how are we feeling about Sony and PlayStation after this week? Because there's no doubt that Sony dropped a lot of intense news, right? News that they knew as well as we know now that is going to create a lot of conversation. I mean, we had the state of play. We had the news that Days Gone as well as other games are going to be making their way to PC. We had the news that Sony's Japan studio is being reorganized. There's just been a lot going on. And, the way I'm left feeling is I feel like I'm kind of up in the air right now a little bit, because what's weird to me is that, Sony is doing, they're kind of making these changes, right? And I don't think the problem itself is them making the change. I think it's just how rapidly they're doing so, and how just kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of like a weird perfect storm. And by perfect, I mean perfect for kind of causing controversy, right? Where they have a state of play, and it's like everybody should be excited. They're doing a state of play, and then everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are left, regardless of how I feel, a lot of people are left feeling really disappointed by the state of play. And then on top of that, they're coming out here and being like, hey, Days Gone is going to PC and other games are going to go. And then, there's been this big, I guess, kind of concern at this point. Like, I don't know that everybody here, who's a PlayStation fan is concerned. I don't believe that. I think that there are many of you who are perfectly fine, and it is what it is. I actually share a lot of that sentiment, but I've definitely seen a lot of people express concern as to like, what is the future of PlayStation now? Like, are they making good decisions? Are they just now copying Microsoft's path? Are they doing it too rapidly? Are they being too risky? Are they treating their their console buyers as like second class now, and we take a back seat? These are all things that I've seen brought up. We have Lyro, you're saying console shortage can cause this generation's lifespan to be longer, just like the PS2 days. I know it's a bad thing for gamers, but it's a good thing for the devs taking their time learning the new tech. Yeah, that is interesting. Speaking to the shortage right now, which is easily the biggest issue, I would actually argue that I think a lot of the animosity that's being thrown Sony's way right now for like the state of play and whatnot, I really do believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I think it's because there's a lot of people who don't have PS5s. They're frustrated that they don't have a PS5. They've been trying to get a PS5, and they just I just feel like at least a certain percentage of people are taking out their frustrations on Sony this week because of that, which is understandable. But I think there is a positive to it, as you say here. It does mean that devs will be able to spend more time with the hardware if this does, in fact, lead to a potential extension of this generation. However, I don't know with the PS5 that there's going to be an extension. I think it really depends on how well it sells. And maybe that might not even be a factor at this point. It's really difficult to say, man, but you do bring up some good points. We also have Primal Plasma. You're saying people are disappointed with the last state of play, but I think Sony holds back so that Nintendo can release their AAA games in March. They cooperate. If there's one thing I can tell you right now with this state of play that was made obvious is Sony is 100% holding back. And you could argue that that's why people are left feeling so disappointed, because Sony rings the bell. They say, hey, we want you to show up. We want you to tune in. And I feel like there's this, I don't know if it's a problem. I feel like in the case of this state of play and in the case of just sometimes the general conversation around PlayStation, it can be a problem and it can work against them, kind of like a double-edged sword. And that has to do with the fact that I think people, they have this association with the PlayStation brand at this point where everything is big, everything is massive, and the expectations are always kind of fixated on that. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute when we do a deeper dive into the whole state of play situation. Nikolai, you're saying releasing PS games on PC will, in my opinion, end up with Sony losing money because they might end up buying a PC instead of a PlayStation. I understand that, and I used to have that mindset as well. Back when I was really very much up on Xbox, and I was a big Xbox fan, and I was very much not on board with this idea that they're putting all of their games onto PC. I had that same mindset where I'm like, I think that this is going to hurt console sales. Now, the truth of the matter is this. The Xbox One did not sell very well compared to PlayStation 4. The truth is, we do not know. We do not have the data, at least us, right? The consumer, the gamers. We do not have the data to determine, did Microsoft's decision to release their exclusive games day and date onto PC actually hurt their console sales or not? We don't know, because you look at where the Xbox One ended, right? It ended at what? Microsoft didn't officially announce it, but we can speculate based off of past data. They ended at around 40 million, maybe 45 million, maybe 50 million. I think that's pushing it. Consoles sold. The question is, would they have sold a significant amount beyond that if they never put their games on the PC? And I feel like that's a question we don't have an answer to. What the only data point we actually have to look at now, and people think I'm damage controlling when I say this. I'm not trying to damage control. I'm simply trying to look at the data and see what the data tells me and figure out if my stance was actually an incorrect stance. Because my stance is exactly what you're saying, where I feel like putting your games on the PC will ultimately hurt the console and potentially lead to lower sales. And people will question and they'll say, well, MBG, why do you care if a console sells less? Well, look at the Wii U. Look at past consoles that didn't sell very well. They take a back seat. They take a back seat, and they are no longer the priority to developers, or even sometimes the platform holders themselves, right? And so that's the ultimate concern. And so I'm only saying this because the only real data point we have is Xbox Series X and S sales are trending similarly to Xbox One sales at the same time. And so if you look at that, you can't really determine, what does this say for the rest of the generation? We don't know. Even Sony doesn't know. That's what people need to understand about the whole PC thing with Sony releasing games on PC. Sony doesn't know if this is ultimately going to affect their console sales negatively. You can very clearly see they're slowly inching their way and pushing the bar and pushing the envelope a little bit further each time to see what the impact is. First, it was a 3-year-old game with Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm assuming it had zero negative effect on any of their metrics, right? Now we're seeing a 2-year-old game with Days Gone. Don't be surprised if next year it's a 1-year-old game. And then I know people don't want to hear this, but it just might be the truth, guys, because I'm not in control of this. We just have to look at what's being laid out in front of us. It may eventually be day and date. Now, don't jump to conclusions. I'm not saying to expect all Sony games to be day and date. However, I think it would be foolish to assume and believe that Sony will not, at some point during the course of this generation, experiment with at least trying to release one of their PS5 games day and date on PC, one of their first-party games. I have a feeling they're going to experiment with that, and I think that will be the real test. Because if Sony, if they see it somehow it negatively impacts their console sales, like they see a big dip when they do that, and then maybe there's like a ripple effect where because they did this, maybe a bunch of people who were going to buy PS5s now are not. I don't think, I just think at this point, you look at the direction Sony's going in, I think they're going to do that at some point. And frankly, I just feel like it would be, what is up with these people like trolling me right now, man? Am I going to have to just get rid of them? Solid Snake, you're saying, I think Sony releasing games on PC is a good idea. People tend to forget that Sony is a corporation that needs money to continue to make great games / exclusives. How else would Sony buy out studios? Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that's lost on a lot of people right now is, when you question why did Microsoft make this decision a couple years ago? Now, why is Sony seemingly slowly inching their way? That's why. It's for money. It's for their bottom line. And the reality is, Microsoft did not care that I was upset. A loyal Xbox fan at the time, they did not care that I was upset that they decided to put their games on PC. They did not care at all. They didn't care that I went over to PlayStation. They didn't care. It had zero impact. There was a lot of, vocal people, Xbox fans at that time, where it was clear that it doesn't matter how against it you are. This is what Microsoft's doing, and the hard truth right now is, guys, the same applies to Sony. Did you see what Jim Ryan said in his most recent interview? He said, we wanted to gauge how the PlayStation community would react to us putting Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, and he said that there was no negative reaction. So what that tells you, Jim Ryan is indirectly, or in a way, kind of directly confirming that those who were on the internet, those who were on Twitter, who were freaking out, Sony does not care. And that's just a hard truth. I know that's a difficult pill to swallow, and that's why I'm not freaking out. People are like, dude, you need to keep the same energy that you had for Microsoft. At this point, what is the point of doing that? If this is, Sony was basically, actually at this point, Nintendo is the only one. Nintendo is the only one kind of, the last bastion, I guess you could say, of true exclusives where they're not putting their games on PC ever. At least not now, right? They're not following Microsoft. They're not following Sony. So at this point, I can raise my fist towards Sony and be like, why are you doing this? Even though I know exactly why they're doing it, even though the writing is now clearly on the wall, what is the point? What is that going to achieve? Is that going to suddenly make Sony be like, you know what? You're right, MBG. We're not going to do this now. No, dude. Sony's going to do what they're going to do, just like Microsoft is. And my only concern has truly, it always has come down, and I guess we're just kind of starting off with the PC topic here. My concern has always come down to one thing and one thing only when it comes to games going to PC. That is it going to make the console less of a priority? Now, I will say, Microsoft has been doing a pretty good job at maintaining console priority ever since they announced that games are going to PC day and date. I think that they have not been doing as good of a job as Sony, because Sony has really Sony's made it clear that like they very much care about console sales, whereas Microsoft made it clear they don't care about console sales anymore. It's more about subscribers and whatnot and services. And so it kind of leads to this idea of, well, is Sony going to no longer look at the console as a priority if they put Days Gone and other titles onto the PC? I don't think so. There's no signs of that happening. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying, my issue is not that games are going to PC. My issue is that we had these games for years and they go to PC essentially upgraded while we are stuck. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Sir Speaks a Lot, that I'm going to speak to in a second here. And Junior Jackson, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for all the super chats, guys. You're saying, just saying hi. Hi. Well, what's up, Junior Jackson? I always appreciate your support, man. I'm glad you can be here. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I got to say, that is the one thing that is kind of sticking out to me right now. Matt, you're saying, okay, so we got a Final Fantasy 16 or 14, I think that's 14, DLC reveal weeks ago, and we got Final Fantasy 7 Remake PS5 reveal. Hopefully this means Life is Strange 3 next. It's possible, man. It's possible. I mean, I'm not sure. Are you? I think you may be speaking to that insider. I don't know if that's what you're referencing on Reset Error, where they basically said all of this stuff, everything you just listed that did get announced is coming, and they happened to mention Life is Strange 3. I'm assuming that's what you're getting at, but thank you for the super chat. But getting back to the PC talk here, that is a good point you do bring up, Sir Speaks a Lot, where, one thing I noticed today over on Twitter is Guerrilla Games was celebrating, I think it's the 4th anniversary of Horizon Zero Dawn. And one of the things that a lot of people were bringing up is, where's the PS5 patch? Where's the PS5 upgrade for Horizon Zero Dawn on, for the PS5? Where is it? And, I think that's a fair question because that's one of Sony's biggest games, and I would love to see that game get upgraded on the PS5. And the problem lies not in the fact that it didn't get an upgrade. The problem lies in the fact that they decided to port this game to PC, give the PC version all of the bells and whistles, and kind of max it out, and they didn't do anything for the PS5. And this is where I will draw the line, and I will not defend Sony and sit here and say that that's okay. That's not okay. I understand that you are probably neck deep in Horizon Forbidden West development, but that's exactly what we're talking about, where how are you going to do that? How, and the same, to be fair, Days Gone did get a PlayStation 5 patch. So I can't really complain too much about that because they did give a PlayStation 5 patch to Days Gone. It runs a lot better on the PS5. But that's where it's like, Sony, Guerrilla Games, what are you doing? Like, you are literally putting your console players, and there's a lot of people are going to be like, well, who cares? It's an older game, but it's like, that's not the point. You see what I'm saying? The point is they're doing this for PC players. Why are they not doing it for people who just bought their new console? You know what I mean? And if they're doing it for PC, why can't they just do the same thing for console? It's just so strange to me. It's so strange that they're basically going to say, we're going to optimize, we're going to go out of our way to take development time to optimize this game that we're releasing on PC. We're going to optimize it for PC specs, but we're not going to optimize it for the PS5. Unacceptable. I'm sorry. That is unacceptable. And frankly, that is a small slap to the face to your console fan base. And this is where the concern starts to rise up. Like, Sony, you really going to start doing this now? Come on. Like, you got to keep it. Look, Sony, do whatever you want. Release all your games on PC for all I care at this point, because you're making it clear you're inching that way. Just do not deprioritize the console fan base. You can't do that. That's where it gets concerning. It does get concerning. Jamal, you're saying, oh, and the state of play was amazing for us Final Fantasy fans. If you aren't a fan, that's a you problem, and you all need to work on that. Play more Final Fantasy games. Yeah, I will admit I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan, but that's basically the sentiment that's been conveyed to me, is that the state of play for Final Fantasy fans has actually been pretty good. The only negative I've seen is apparently that new chapter that they released is apparently only for PlayStation 5 owners, and there's a lot of people who still can't get a PS5, so they're feeling pretty upset about that. Josh Z, you're saying Wii U was an early attempt at a Switch, but if I remember correctly, its failure was more so due to the lack of third-party support. First party was solid. Yeah, exactly. I think the Wii U is a good example of not only just terrible marketing of your console, where you confuse people about what your console actually is, but I do think that that is kind of a case study of like, can a console succeed just with first-party games alone? It seems like maybe not. It needs at least some third-party support, at least halfway decent third-party support, right? At least if you're going based off of what the Wii U did and you know how it ended up looking, or selling, not looking. But yeah, even the look of the console confused people because they're like, wait, is this like a Wii expansion? Is this a new console? People were just very confused. But you know, the truth of the matter is, guys, you know, I've seen some people come to me and they're like, MBG, you got to keep the same energy, man. Like, you freaked out. You know, you freaked out when Microsoft made this decision for Xbox, and I'm not going to deny that. Of course I freaked out. There's probably still a bunch of videos deep somewhere on my channel of me freaking out about this or claiming that, you know, Microsoft is making a big mistake, and I was very adamant about that, and I'm not denying that. But again, what it comes down to at this point is is there a point? That's what I'm trying to convey. Is there a point to continue to try to fight this, or is the battle over? Is the war over? And at this point, we have to sit back and see what the potential ramifications and repercussions are going to be. You know, when I was pushing against Microsoft, one of the things I always said is they should be focusing on trying to do what Sony's doing, where it's like, focus on your exclusive games to help give, you know, an even more compelling reason to sell your hardware, because your hardware sales are struggling. Now, the question is this, and I want to ask you guys, did Microsoft's hardware fail to sell due to the fact that they put their games on PC, or did it fail to sell because it's just overall less appealing to the core gamer, to the average gamer? Their games are just overall less appealing to the core gamer and the average gamer. That's the question. And at this point in time, I'm starting to lean more towards, okay, maybe it had nothing to do with their games going to PC and everything to do with the fact that it's just a less popular brand. And it was always going to sell that poorly, right? Regardless of whether their games went to PC or not. Fantasy Gamer, you're saying, I thought $80 was to justify the raised price for exclusivity. A huge slap in the face for PlayStation owners. Just want to buy a PC at this point. Well, you do have to understand, Fantasy Gamer, that that's not necessarily what Sony conveyed. What Sony, and I'm not justifying it, I'm trying to clarify it. Sony said that the cost of their games goes up, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with exclusivity. I mean, you could argue that, yeah, because a lot of their games, and that's, look, honestly, Fantasy Gamer, you bring up another good point here that we do have to discuss, and that is, you know, who said PS5 games are going to PC? PS5 exclusives from Sony's first party specifically. Who said this? Did Sony say this? No, they did not. Can we speculate that the chances of that happening, which I already did earlier in this podcast, are much greater now? Now that Sony's becoming much more comfortable? Of course. That's a natural, you know, speculative thought to have. That's actually the next logical thought process to occur, right? But who said PlayStation 5 games are going to PC? No one has said this yet. The only people who've said this are people who were worried about being correct about predicting the future, which is fine. You know, there's a 50-50 chance they're going to be correct. But Sony has not said anything. Now, there is a chance that when Sony says Days Gone, along with a whole slate of games, they could be talking about PS5 games. I just feel like the chances of that are not likely. They're most likely talking about, you know, PS4 games for now. So that, you know, we can't really use that against them right now, because I will say this, as long as their games do remain on, you know, as long as they make games, let's just use Returnal and Ratchet and Clank, I think are two good, you know, upcoming examples. As far as we know, neither of these games are releasing on PC. Whether or not they will, you know, a game like Returnal will release on PC 2 years from now, who knows? That's anybody's guess. But right now, they're being released on PS5 only. So we can't we kind of can't use that against them yet, right? Let me see. Severin Evans, you're saying Sony doesn't care about PlayStation or PC. They just want money. They are a business. Exclusives are unsustainable at this point. Costs are only rising. I'm going to be honest right now with you, Severin. I don't even think it's that. I don't think it has anything to do with the sustainability of exclusives. There's no doubt that costs are rising, but let's be real right now. Sony is making bank, absolute bank on their exclusive games, the big ones, the big hits. Games like God of War, Horizon, Spider-Man, they are, the cash is just rolling in, man. They're not hurting for money. Make no mistake about that. But you are right about one thing. They do want more money, and they are a business, and that's the thing that's why I'm saying Sony doesn't care. Neither does Microsoft. They don't care how much people want to cry about their games going to PC. They don't care. What they care about is selling that game and making more money off of it on a platform that they deem a non-competitive platform to theirs. And that's what we need to understand. That's the pill we have to swallow, whether we like it or not, because that's what's happening. I've seen people like freak out and be like, I'm selling my console. I'm throwing my console out. I'm breaking my games. And it's like, go ahead, dude. Like, that's not going to stop Sony from doing anything that they plan to do going forward. So your best bet is just get over it and try to enjoy some games. Because trust me, I did my fair share of crying about it, and look at where we are. Does this mean I'm going to enjoy Returnal any less? Does this mean I'm going to enjoy Ratchet and Clank any less? No, I'm not. And you know what? Hey, in the future, if Sony ever does want to experiment with releasing one of their titles day and date on PC, chances are it's probably not going to stop my enjoyment of that game. There is one major point I have to bring up here, though. And I'm gonna get to your super chats in a second, guys. Give me 1 second. One major point that Sony, I will rip into Sony for this hardcore, not because I'm crying about it because I'm upset, but because of the hypocrisy. And I need to emphasize I'm not saying Sony's doing this, but if this day comes, keep in mind one of Sony's main selling points and main marketing points for the PS5, and specifically the I/O throughput, the SSD, the reason why they did what they did with the PlayStation 5 hardware specifically is for their exclusive games. And their whole argument was, well, what we're doing with these games, specifically even looking at Ratchet and Clank, this is a game that they are claiming cannot run on PC or other platforms because they're taking full advantage of the PlayStation 5's I/O throughput and SSD speed. So if they, a year later, basically say, oh, well, here's Ratchet and Clank for PC, I will rip into them because that is, you sold me on a console saying that the reason why, you made these decisions with it is because you're going to make exclusives that are tailored to this console and take full advantage of it, and they can't go on other platforms. So that's another thing Sony has to be aware of, and we also as consumers need to be aware of, where Sony may, did they lie about that? I want to say no, but we've seen Jim Ryan and we've heard Jim Ryan, and Jim Ryan, I don't think he's the worst dude in the world, at least not yet anyway, but if there's one thing I can tell you is he is not transparent, dude. Like, he is not speaking to the core PlayStation fan base when he is speaking, okay? He is not doing that because every time he talks, he just pisses the core fan base off, mainly because he's just not transparent enough. The whole, no cross-gen games, we believe in generations thing, the whole, we're just putting Horizon Zero Dawn on for now, and that's it. And then a year later, it's like, well, actually, we're doing more. It's like, just be transparent. Stop coddling us, and I get it. There's a vocal minority, but just lay it on us, man. Like, tell us what you're going to do. I would appreciate that. Severin, you're saying, I am a C++ coder who designs character models and animations myself. Never have I seen so much crunch to hire independent coders like me before. I don't know what to make of that, Severin, honestly. I'm not sure what to make of that. You're saying, by the way, the PS5 M.2 NVMe is equivalent to about a 980 Samsung Evo. That is a very premium drive, by the way. Yeah, so that's the thing. If Sony ever were to release games like Ratchet and Clank that they claim are taking full advantage of the PS5, if it were to go to PC, it would have to be like a super high-spec PC, right? Like a very premium PC, right? And then we have the Mark Shark. You're saying, thoughts on the new Halo Infinite screenshots? In my opinion, it doesn't look that much better. Anyway, enjoy Or sorry, saying everyone like the video. Yeah, thank you. Please like the video or like the podcast, guys. It really helps. I have seen some of them, and I think they look pretty good. I agree. They don't look like vastly better, but it's definitely looking like it's made some visual improvements. And I am going to be very interested to see how Halo, even though it's not a game I'm particularly interested in, just because of everything surrounding that game, I am going to be fascinated in seeing, like, you know, what leaps and strides have they made since the last time we saw it. And, you know, is this going to impress people now, you know? Severin, you're saying the GPU and CPU requirements wouldn't be crazy. No, but you would need a premium NVMe to run it if that's the case. Yes. Yeah. So there you go. You know, that's it right there. You know, Sony went all in with the SSD and the IO throughput, and part of their justification for that was game development, right? And them being able to do some things, because you guys know I've said on the channel many times, like, maybe I'm a fool for believing Sony at this point. You know, Sony has proven, at least Jim Ryan's Sony has proven, that we have to kind of at this point be careful in how much we buy into what they say. I will say this though, and I need to make this clear. Okay. And this, you know, this is also going to apply for what we talk about during the state of play, because guys, like, I think my title is spot on. This has been a polarizing week for PlayStation fans. All right. Leviathan X, you're saying preach, spot on, Jim Ryan, he just lies. I mean, the thing is, like, I'm not here to defend Jim Ryan. I'm also not here to, you know, basically freak out about him, because I used to do the same thing towards Phil Spencer. And the day comes where you realize it doesn't matter. Okay. Like, and I don't mean to sound so nihilistic in saying that, but it's the truth. Like, Jim Ryan does not care, nor does Phil Spencer care what MBG or, frankly, my audience has to say about their games and their decisions. And this is so important for you, everybody, to understand. And I failed to understand this earlier, and I looked foolish for this because I was so in my own bubble, right, that I didn't want to believe what I'm about to say. But this is just the truth of the matter, guys, and this is the most important thing that we can all hold on to, because it's the most objective. Okay, this is not an opinion. This is not, what does MBG think of this? What does so-and-so think of this? No. The market will speak. And that is the only language, that is the only voice that matters to Sony. That is the only voice that matters to Microsoft and even Nintendo. Nintendo, I think, they just don't want to put their games on PC because they're stubborn as all hell, dude. They don't want to move at all, okay? If Nintendo doesn't have to move, they'll never move. They only move when they absolutely have to. And people like that, but some people don't. But make no mistake, we are talking about corporate entities here. And as passionate as I am about the games that Sony releases and the games that, you know, I've played in the past, we have to understand the market will speak much louder than the person freaking out on Twitter, than me, than anybody else, than the most upvoted comment. The market will speak, okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because if Sony is in fact making a critical mistake in what they're doing and the way they're proceeding forward, then they will see it in their bottom line. And if they do not see it in their bottom line, then they don't hear anything. They just see that, oh, we're making money. We're making more money. That's the language they speak, man. All of these corporate entities. Severin, once again, thank you for all the super chats, man. You're saying, just to be fair here, PC is an independent platform. Xbox still won't get the games even if this happens, so I don't see why it's so polarizing. Well, the reason why it's so polarizing, you know, there's multiple reasons. One of the main reasons is because I've been an advocate against exclusives going to PC, right? So there's that in and of itself just here on this channel. But there's also the fact that a lot of PlayStation fans did not want to see this. They do not want to see this. And, you know, that's why I'm just trying to cut through it all here, guys, and just say, look, at this point, my opinion is irrelevant in this area. Days Gone is releasing on PC, and Sony says a slate of a whole host of other PlayStation games are going to PC. Guys, you think you're not going to see God of War on PC? You think you're not going to see God of War 2018, Spider-Man 2018 on PC? You think you're not going to see eventually The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima on PC? Guys, like I'm saying, like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Sony is making this clear. They want to maximize sales of their software. The only question that's left and the only question that remains that, frankly, is not answered right now, and we won't have an answer to it until later this generation, is what does that mean for PS5 games, PS5 exclusives? Should we expect them to ever release day and date? And if not, should we expect them to eventually, maybe a year, maybe 2, maybe 3 years later, release on PC? Are we seeing a situation where Sony's just making it clear that they're going to put all PS4 games on PC? PS5 games will not go to PC exclusives until the PlayStation 6 generation rolls around. Is that what they're doing? It's very possible. We don't have all the answers yet, but we have to be logical in our thought processes at this point. I used to get too emotional with this stuff, and I realized that it doesn't matter how emotional I get. What's going to happen is going to happen. And that's just the reality. And I don't think it's a bad thing, honestly, you know? And I'll tell you why in a second. Locoism 1025, you're saying I'd rather have PS Plus at $65 and games at $70 and not have PS exclusives go to PC if they want to cover the extra cost. Dude, that's just it, dude. That's just it, Locoism, is it's not about covering the cost. That's what Sony will tell you. It's because Sony's not going to come out here and straight up tell people when they're asked, why are you putting your games on PC? Money. You know, insert Mr. Krabs, money. We want money. They're not going to say that because they know that makes, optically speaking, that makes them look bad. What they're going to say is, well, you know, the cost of games, yeah, because it's a fact. The cost of games is high, especially the type of games that Sony makes. But that's not why, dude. You know, I saw this article. It was like GamesBeat or something, or VentureBeat. They titled their article like, PlayStation fans are not enough to meet Sony's, like, you know, expectations anymore. Just not enough for Sony more. Like, no, that's not it. Sony still cares very much about their PlayStation fan base, the console fan base that has made them who they are. But at this point, it's about business. It's about, well, are we really going to lose our core fan base if we do this? No, they're not. Like, that's what people need to understand. You think PS5s are going to sell any less because Days Gone is going to PC? Because Horizon Zero Dawn's on PC? You think people who want PS5s right now are just going to be like, never mind. Maybe like 2% of people, probably even less than that. That's the reality, guys. That's the reality. And Sony is doing this because they want more money. I'm not even saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what we need to understand. They're not trying to cover the cost of anything. They're trying to just make more money. They're leaving money on the table, and they know this. Severin, you're saying you should never expect what you want from a corporation. Yeah, I will agree. Yeah, at this point, I agree with that, man. The PS5 will still sell. Some people are just console gamers and will never play on PC either. I'd argue that the majority of console gamers are console gamers who they either also play on PC or they just don't play on PC. I think I'm a good example of this. You know, I do not want to play PC games. There's a reason why, and I have argued against this, and that's probably because my insight was lacking. And I will admit that. My insight was lacking because I was under the impression that, well, and honestly, it's because I listened to the wrong people, okay? Because, you know, I'm not the be-all, end-all. I don't have all the answers. I go and I listen to other people talk. And when you listen to the wrong people, you realize, wait a second, you know, they're not right. They're not correct in their thought process. But I end up falling for it or listening to it. And I was under this illusion that, well, if exclusives go to PC, then no one's going to buy the console. That's just straight up not true. And you're going to see that for yourself, okay? I guarantee you, Series X and Series S sales, for as hard as I am on Microsoft, and I still think that they have a long way to go in delivering the big games, they're going to do just fine. Like, they're going to do just fine. Microsoft came to this conclusion earlier. Sony was more hesitant because Sony was like, well, we have a lot more to lose than Microsoft does when it comes to the hardware market because we care very much about hardware. Don't get me wrong, like, hardware sales are important to both companies, but it's more important to Sony. And so Sony is like, okay, you go first, Microsoft, And if we don't see any type of like major negative, like suddenly, oh my God, like Xbox consoles stopped selling. Again, Xbox consoles didn't stop selling because their games are on PC. They stopped selling because they don't have the exciting games that people want, that have this mass broad appeal. Steven, you're saying Sony and Square rumors have some smoke. Final Fantasy TV show exclusive deals. I think they're making room for Square with Japan studios downsizing. It's hard to say, man. I mean, it's a loaded statement to say, oh, Sony's gonna buy Square Enix. Like, I don't know, man. That's like a business deal and a business decision that's way over my head, dude. Like, I don't even feel comfortable speculating on that because I don't even know the ramifications. Like, what does that mean for Sony as a business? Does that make any business sense whatsoever? You know, like, I'm not here to play businessman. I'm just trying to understand, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to just look at it in the most logical way I can and try to understand, like, you know, what is the disconnect here? You know, why do I see some fans on Twitter literally screaming in agony, seemingly, that Days Gone is going to PC, and yet I see a large group of people who are also still like, yeah, I want my PS5 and I can't get it. And I'm just like, there's a disconnect here. There's a literal disconnect here. And that's all. I'm just trying to acknowledge what that disconnect is and basically just, you know, use my brain here, I guess, and not so much my emotions. MH, you're saying console and PC players are very different. Of course, there are gamers that do both, but most want the convenience of console gaming. Yeah, no, and people are going to be like, dude, you're just moving the goalposts. It's like, no, I'm not trying to move any goalposts, man. And I'm not, you know, that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to defend anything I said in the past. In fact, I've been saying how actually maybe I was wrong. You know, maybe I had the wrong viewpoint. You know, there were people clowning me on Twitter for old Xbox videos I used to make in like early 2019, where I was like, the end is nigh, Microsoft is making a mistake. And it's like, I understand why I made those videos in that moment. And I also understand why I look foolish for doing so now, because it's like, look at where we are. And so it's like, what am I going to do? You know, what do people expect me to do? They expect me to come out here and be like, you know what? I'm done, Sony. I'm not playing the next God of War if it's on PC. I'm not playing any games you release on PC. I'm getting rid of my PS5. And here's the thing, man. Like, the people who are like, well, screw this. I'm going to go build a powerful PC and just wait for the PlayStation games to come. Who's stopping you? Like, I don't know. Like, do you want Sony to like come in? Do you want Jim Ryan to like personally come to your home and be like, wait, no, before you do that, we're sorry. That's what I'm saying, man. It's just like, I used to be entitled, and, you know, I still am to some extent. I'm a human being. We all have these moments where we believe we're entitled to things that we're just simply not. And we start to live in these like fantasy worlds. And it's just like, eventually that bubble has to pop, and you got to realize, like, what does this all come down to, guys? And I'm going to bring it full circle here. What does this all come down to at the end of the day? I'm sure you can tell me. In fact, I will let you tell me in the chat what this all comes down to. Severin, you're saying, if I was Microsoft, I would try to prevent PlayStation from going to PC because it would spell trouble for them if it happens, especially when it comes to games. That is another potential possibility as well. I don't know if it'll spell doom for them or like it'll be like trouble per se. I think what everybody needs to worry about, including Microsoft, you know, talking about PlayStation taking a page from Microsoft's playbook. Dude, Microsoft better pray that PlayStation has no intentions, that they don't do their own version of Game Pass with all exclusives going into PlayStation Game Pass day and date. That's a whole nother conversation, but I will tell you right now, dude, that would like, that would hurt Microsoft more than anything. Luckily, I don't think Sony's planning on doing that anytime remotely soon. Zedhead, you're saying, bruh, I'm just going to be real with you. If Sony's games become available on an objectively better platform, I'd rather play them there. And dude, that's the thing, man. You're saying damage control. Dude, it's not that. What am I damage controlling? I'm literally telling you that I was wrong, that I had a bad viewpoint. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't understand how that translates to damage control. If it was damage control, wouldn't I be defending my previous statements and my previous stances? You know, but dude, that's, you know, who was that said that? Zedhead. Dude, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, do your thing, dude. You know, because we cannot lose sight because I've lost sight many times before. What does this come down to? What does it come down to? The theme, the overarching theme that applies to every real gamer, okay? It comes to, we just want to play great games. People forget, man. I've said a lot of stuff on my channel. I said a lot of stuff about Xbox, but you know the thing that I've noticed people are forgetting recently that I need to remind them of? Go back and listen to the real reason why I switched from Xbox to PlayStation. Okay, the reasoning, the real reason. It was not because Microsoft put their games on PC. I mean, there were a lot of things that Microsoft was doing. It was a combination of Microsoft seemingly doubling down on services, but mainly they just weren't bringing the games, man. If Microsoft was delivering the games that, say, Sony was delivering, like it was reversed, and then they were making those decisions, chances are I would have never left Xbox because I'd be like, man, you know, this is a little bit weird and I'm not sure if this is good. They're taking all these weird steps that just seem illogical in the moment, but they're bringing great games that, you know, I are undeniably amazing and pretty much must-play games. I would have never left the Xbox platform, but no, they're bringing me State of Decay 2. They're bringing me Sea of Thieves. They're bringing me Crackdown 3. And no offense to those who enjoy those games. Even I enjoyed State of Decay 2 a little bit, but those are not, that's not what I want. You know, like I want more than that. And I don't think it's unfair to expect that. And that's all I'm trying to say, man. People lose sight. Even I lose sight. But go back and you'll see that that's why I left Xbox. Because I was fed up with waiting for the big games while seemingly Microsoft is doubling down their focus on services that I'm not interested in. Dennis, you're saying the only thing bringing these games to PC will do is make them available for pirating. Entire countries will play them without paying. Well, like I said, dude, if that's true, if that is really what's going to happen, then logically speaking, Sony will stop doing that. You know, this is where I'm trying to say the market will speak. If this negatively affects Sony's bottom line, whether it's with console hardware sales or software sales or just overall the amount of money they're making in general, they will stop doing it. So pay attention to that. Sony, people don't understand that Sony is also in the process of experimenting. Sony does not have the answers. They are speculating as much as we are. However, Sony probably has much more data available to them, hard data that is available to them that we don't, you know. Nintendo Power, you're saying they need a service with an entire library from PS1 through 5. I mean, yeah, maybe in the long run, dude. You know, maybe in the long run. D-Doc, you're saying, bro, this is why I missed the old days when I was young. I had a GameCube, Xbox, and PS2. I didn't know about Toro flops or Infinity Cash. Just games. Yeah, I will admit, dude, like, it's just the nature of running a channel centered around this stuff. Like, you know, I'm looking for the flavor of the day, and sometimes it gets way too easy to get caught up in the flavor of the day because the truth is, the flavor of the day is not always just the games. There's a lot of other things in the gaming industry, whether it's spec talk, acquisition talk, the business side of things, a lot of these different areas that I love to dabble in, and I think my problem is I always get too ahead of myself. Like, I walk into a topic and I assume that I have the answers. And it's like, I've been humbled over and over again, realizing that I don't have the answers. And I'm okay with that at this point. You know, maybe at this point, I'm the person in the room that I need to be asking the most questions. You know what I mean? Because I'm jumping to conclusions too quickly. And while I'm doing that, I'm also getting further away from, wait a second, wasn't this just about enjoying playing video games? Ammo Guns, you're saying if Sony releases day and date on PC, then I'll panic. Dude, look, I'm going to tell you right now, Ammo Guns, you can't have that mentality. You're worrying too much about something you shouldn't be worried about. If Sony makes a business decision, like an executive decision where we're releasing our games day and date, dude, just go with it, man. Because I can tell you, your panic will not translate to them reversing their decision. However, speak with your wallet, dude. You know, that's we are the market and we have to speak. My voice right now isn't even a voice compared to the market and what the market ends up telling Sony. And the best language we can speak with is the language of money. That's the language that these corporations speak. We have, let me see, I don't want to miss any of these. Jay Dizzle, you're saying as a PS fan only, I don't see issue with this. More people are going to play amazing games. And dude, like, that's the thing. I'm trying to see the positives here. And the positive to me is, well, Days Gone is 2 years old. Who is buying a PlayStation console right now just for Days Gone? Pretty much nobody. However, are there people who are stubborn and also on PC and they're like, I'm never buying a console for any game ever? that maybe now it's available on PC and it's like, okay, I'll play it. And it's like, dude, Days Gone is one of my favorite games. It's like one of the main reasons I went over to PlayStation, because it enticed me at a time when Microsoft was not bringing anything. And dude, I platinumed the game, I played it, and dude, let more people play it. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's certainly not going to hurt PS5 sales, So go for it, man. Go for it. My only concern is like, Sony, if you're doing this for older games, don't make the PlayStation fan base take a backseat. Like, again, with Horizon Zero Dawn, you should have released a PS5 patch for Horizon Zero Dawn, because it looks bad when you're giving PC players all of these bells and whistles, and then, PS5 players, maybe they're stretched thin. Maybe they can't do it, but even then, like, still, that doesn't make me feel any better. Just release a damn patch. Give us 60 FPS Horizon Zero Dawn on PS5. That's all I'm saying. As far as I know, it doesn't have a patch, or it doesn't run at 60. Josh Z, you're saying, I'm the rare hardcore gamer that doesn't care about specs. As long as the game runs on its hardware, I'm content. I play both next gen and retro. I think people have gotten too entitled now. Yeah, I agree, man. And I could admit to that. There's a lot of things that, I also run a YouTube channel, and I'm not going to sit here and hide and pretend that I'm not doing what I'm doing for views. Of course, like, dude, I mean, my goal on this channel is to fuse my passion with also trying to grow the channel and get people to watch it and get people to engage with it. And I will admit that there are these things that pop up sometimes where it's like, this isn't really the priority, but it's what people are talking about right now. So let's go. Let's dive in head first. And sometimes I end up smashing my head because it's like, whoa, okay, I went in way too quick, and that's not how I should have approached this. And I regret my decision, because it's like, hey, this is the hot topic. It's a learning process. It's all part of growth, Ep.50, you're saying Capcom is releasing Monster Hunter Rise on PC in 2022, and this month on Switch. Nobody I know is willing to wait until 2022 to play on it. If Sony games don't release day and date on PC, it's not a problem. And that's the thing, too, is like, I don't want to jump the gun. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it would be perfectly fine if Sony did day and date releases. I don't know if it would be. I don't have the answer to that. Okay? That's something that Sony will honestly, if they ever... Okay, so we have to finish up this topic because we're spending way too much time on it, but I'll say this. So if Sony has any intention of ever doing PS5 and PC day and date releases, or just exclusive day and date release with PC, I have to imagine that's something they are considering. Thank you, No Game, No Life. You're saying you hope I'm doing well. I'm doing well. If you have a question, save it for the end. I'll try to do a Q&A, because I know not everybody can super chat, and when I'm doing the topics, I have to prioritize the super chats. So save it for the end. We could do a Q&A potentially. My whole thing is, I don't believe for a second that this is not a conversation Sony had internally. I'm positive that Sony has had the conversation, should we consider doing day and date releases like Microsoft? And they have to weigh the pros and cons. But I can tell you right now that that's something that if Sony ever attempts, they are aware that they're also taking risk. And again, the market will speak. Okay. It's like I said in my video covering this. If Sony, let's just say, all right, I just want to do this thought experiment, I guess, and then we'll move on to the next topic, which is the state of play, because there's a lot we have to talk about there as well. So let's just say that the next God of War is in fact a PS5 only exclusive, and it's not cross-gen. Let's also say that it's going to be releasing in early 2022. Let's just say like April 2022, right? Like almost mid 2022. When Sony is doing this, okay, like if it is a PS5 exclusive, then that means they have expectations for what this game is going to do in terms of unit sales. God of War will be possibly the biggest system seller that Sony releases in the next couple of years, and it's going to move millions, like easily probably like 5 million plus units over the course of a couple months, probably well more than that, since it'll be releasing early in the generation. Also, did my stream freeze? Okay, I guess not. It's just on my end. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is they have an expectation, they have a number. So when Sony's talking about this internally, they're probably saying, okay, we expect God of War, a PS5 exclusive, to move, let's just say 4 million units or 4 to 5 million units over the course of the next 3 months, because that's how massive this game is. Now, if they also say, we're also going to use this and take a massive risk and release this game day and date on PC to get an answer to our question. Okay, and this is also assuming that there's an abundance of PS5s and that there's just no issue with selling PS5s. There's no scarcity issue. If they were to do this, and basically their goal is 4 to 5 million, and they release it on PC day and date, and over the next 3 months, they see that they've only sold 2 million PS5s when their data tells them we should have easily sold more than 3 million, close to 4 million, and a high point being 5 million, they will not do day and date, because at that point, that will be clear, solid data confirming to them that this heavily impacted console sales and unit sales, okay? But if they don't see that, and it turns out that we sold just as many PS5s as we had anticipated, and we also got double the amount of sales of this game, or, more than we expected because we released it on PC, then Sony at that point will embrace day and date, but it will require a headfirst dive into the day and date pool. It's going to require that. Sony has not reached that point. And again, they also have to contend with this idea, well, if you made God of War PS5 only, but then you're also releasing it on PC, then did you just sell me a bunch of lies claiming that every PS5 exclusive was going to be tailor-made for the PS5? Or, you know what I mean? That's another point where they may have kind of, backed themselves into a corner there. But to me, that's just the most logical way of looking at this, where Sony's putting, as of right now, their PlayStation 4 games on the PC. There's no word on PS5 exclusives. And if there ever is going to be a day and date release for a PS5 exclusive, that is Sony basically saying we're taking our first head dive straight, diving headfirst right into the day and date pool, and we're going to see if we crack our heads open or not. And if they don't, they'll keep doing it. If they do, they're never going to do it again, as long as they care about selling hardware. That's the best way I could wrap this all up. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying Jim Ryan, after you tell him PlayStation sucks, wearing a trench coat with a Tommy gun. Sorry, kid, nothing personal, just business. Can't have you stand in it. So, staying in it. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's no need to get that intense over it, So we will see what happens, guys. I have no problem with Days Gone going to PC. I'm very interested to see what other games, this whole slate of games. I'm actually going to be mad if Dreams is not one of these games that goes to PC, because at that point, Sony's doing that game a massive disservice. I have to imagine, again, that's a game that makes a ton of sense. You're saying, MBG, stop panicking and justifying yourself. Old PS games going to PC is not the end of the world. Dude, I'm not saying it is. Like, I'm literally saying it's fine. I'm not panicking. I'm not justifying, man. I'm just explaining what the logical next steps and possibilities are looking like. I've seen a lot of Xbox guys this week basically say, we told you so, and they have this sentiment where anybody who believes that Sony's not going to do day and date is wrong now. And I think that you're going in too hard, too fast here. I understand you were right. Okay, more PS4 games are going to PC. Sony's taking a page out of Microsoft's book now. But to assume that this means all PS5 games are now going to go to PC and also become day and date, I feel like that's where we're jumping the gun. This is where we don't know that. We don't know what Sony's plans are for specifically PS5 games. We have to wait and see. All we can do is speculate. Spacebar, you're saying, I think IPs like God of War and Spider-Man, Uncharted will remain console exclusive. I believe smaller IPs will probably go to PC. Honestly, man, I'm going to have to disagree with that, only because I think Horizon Zero Dawn is one of Sony's most important and biggest IPs. And I think that when, there's a reason why they started with Horizon Zero Dawn. And in my opinion, and this is just my viewpoint of it, you could be right. We have to wait and see if those games make their way to PC. But when Sony came out and said, okay, Horizon Zero Dawn's going to PC, what that basically told me is, okay, you're willing to pretty much put some of your biggest games on the PC, because Horizon Zero Dawn is one of Sony's biggest games ever, honestly, ever. So, granted, it's one of the newer PlayStation IPs, and so is Days Gone. So there is that through line. There is that connection there where Days Gone is a new IP, came out in 2019, and Horizon Zero Dawn is also a new IP that came out in 2017. Games like Uncharted and God of War, these are classic IP that that is another step forward. That is another big step, because these are IP that are synonymous. I would argue that, and you do have a point here, though, where IP, I don't necessarily know if Spider-Man falls in that category, but IP like Uncharted and God of War, these are IP that are very much synonymous with, with PlayStation. And so it does kind of hit a little bit harder, oh, now a Naughty Dog game is going, you know what I mean? Like the first Naughty Dog game ever, Uncharted, an IP that is just so synonymous with PlayStation, is going to PC. I think it hits a little bit harder, but I don't think that's off the table at all. I really don't. I think that this is where you just see the slow build, where Sony's going to start with the newer IP that's not as ingrained, I guess you could say, in PlayStation heritage. And then eventually they're going to start dipping into the older. Like, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. At this point, I fully expect over the next couple of years, all of PlayStation 4's exclusives to go to PC. I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, even logically speaking, there's no reason why they shouldn't, because nobody's going to be buying those PS4s or PS5 for those games. Nobody is. Nobody. Sarah Speaks a Lot. You're saying, bruh, as soon as they went after my anime waifus, it meant war. Dude, Sarah Speaks a Lot. You're saying they can't stop me from playing Atelier. I don't know. Why can't I pronounce that? A Games. The Thick Thighs, Save Lives, Galgun a Second. Dude, I don't even know how to respond. Sarah Speaks a Lot. I literally don't know how to respond to half of the things you super chat me, man. But hey, there you go. There you go. You're making your opinion known, man. You're making your opinion known. Okay, give me a second, guys. There was something else I meant to bring up here before we actually dived into this, Days Gone going to PC conversation. Give me just 1 second here so I can figure out. Okay, so one of the things I did want to mention briefly, just because I find it interesting, and look, I know it kind of feeds the whole console war, spec talk, power narrative thing, and I know it kind of goes against what I just said about how it's about the games, but I'm just saying this because as a PS5 owner, it is intriguing to me, okay? I'm not saying it's indicative of some greater theme. I just want to point out, apparently, and it's also because it's a game that I've been trying out recently. How many of you have tried out the Outriders demo? It seems like a pretty generic game, but I'm kind of, there's not much to play in general right now on pretty much any game that is even remotely appealing to me, even if it's just on the most surface level. I'm going to try out because I'm just looking for those new PS5 games, third party and first party. Outriders is a game that I'm willing to try out, and I've been playing I only played it for probably, there's just so much story stuff involved, which surprised me. A lot of cutscenes. I haven't really played much of it, but I got a feel for it. It's pretty okay. I don't think it's bad. You could definitely tell it's like not full AAA though. Like it has like the animations, the facial animations, the voice acting is a little bit, but the concept of the game seems pretty good so far. You're saying it's like Gears, but worse. Actually, I'm not going to lie. I like it better than Gears only because it feels lighter than Gears. One of the things I never liked about Gears is how heavy it felt. It always felt like I was like in slow motion. So I do like that about it because it did remind me of Gears a little bit. But it feels like a more faster, fluid-paced Gears. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, a lot of people were referring me to this comparison that was done on Game On Daily. To be honest, I'm not familiar with it. Apparently, they're like a website and they have a YouTube channel. And they did a comparison here. And this was like the only comparison I can find. And I'm only pointing this out because it's interesting. It's an interesting theme we continue to see. You're saying keeps cutting out. Hopefully that's not my stream you're talking about. But apparently the PS5 version of Outriders has overall better performance. They're both locked at native 4K resolution, so the resolution is the same. But I was just like going through the comments here on this video, and I will admit I wasn't able to watch the entire video, but this is what people are saying, and I'm like, oh, so this is interesting. Another multi-platform, third-party multi-platform game where the PS5, and I'm only saying this because, dude, I'm so tired of the rhetoric. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm tired of the rhetoric surrounding the PS5, and I'm not even trying to defend it. By the way, this gameplay that's coming up, Sifu, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. This game looks amazing. But I'm tired of the whole rhetoric where it's like we're still hearing, okay, you're saying nothing is cutting out. All right. We're still hearing about how like the PS5 is still, it's like this it's a weak console. And I've been seeing this rhetoric tossed around a little bit more recently than normal because of, obviously there was the whole RDNA conversation, which I'm not getting into that. But also recently it was revealed that apparently we're going to have to wait till summer for more SSD storage on the PS5. And this is a report, it's not confirmed by Sony, but it's because of overheating potentially, where they need to make sure that they can adjust the fan speeds so that the console doesn't overheat. I'm not going to lie, like that notion is concerning to me. I will wait as long as I need to. I just want Sony to make sure that please don't make this a problem. Like, please don't release this news that these SSDs are compatible and available and then people's consoles start overheating. That would be terrible. But what I've seen is a lot of people taking this as confirmation that Sony basically didn't know what they were doing with the PS5, that they screwed it up and they panicked at the last minute to overclock it. And that's why this isn't already ready. Like, that was the big thing. People are basically bringing up, like, isn't this something that Sony should have already had worked out and planned out? I'm not so sure that that's sound logic. I only say this because if I'm not mistaken, following the whole PS5 reveal, apparently like the SSD that was announced to be inside, the SSD speeds that were announced to be inside of the PS5 is basically, at the time it was announced, SSDs that were literally not available yet. Like, these are speeds that are just not available to the PC market. You can't go buy an SSD that's this fast. And so Sony essentially had to also wait for SSDs to be manufactured to match this, right? So that they could be compatible with the PS5. And what seems logical to me is that Sony basically had to wait for those SSDs. They got those SSDs. Now they're in the phase of testing them, and they're finding that, okay, this is causing a lot of excess heat, so we have to adjust accordingly and basically make sure that it doesn't cause problems. That's my logic. I don't see this as, oh, this is confirmation that Sony panicked with the PS5 and it was ultimately a weaker console and this is why they overclocked it and blah blah blah. Like, no, I really think it makes more sense that they had to also wait for these third parties to manufacture SSDs that have the same speed or an equivalent speed that are compatible with the PS5, and now they have to test them to see if there's going to be any potential issues, and they are running into those issues where it's like, okay, it's overheating, so now we have to make some adjustments. My biggest concern is not that, because they'll fix it. Like, they'll do what they have to do. If worst case scenario, we can't upgrade our storage until a redesign of the PS5 happens. I don't think that's going to happen. That's worst case scenario. My concern is when they do adjust this and they do adjust the fan speed in the PS5 like they said they were going to, because that's apparently what's going to happen when this update rolls out. We already knew about this. Sony made it clear that they will be able to adjust the fan speed in PS5s when need be through updates, which is pretty cool. No pun intended. I am concerned now. If you are somebody, and that's what I don't understand. Like, I don't know if when Sony rolls out this update and spacebar, I'll get to your chat in a second. I don't know if this means they're going to roll it out to everybody. Like, now every single PS5 owner's fan speed is higher now, or if this is just for people who are putting in SSDs. I don't know if that's something that Sony can detect. Probably not. Maybe. I don't know if they detect there's an SSD in there. they have to, you have to update your console or whatever to use it. I'm assuming it's going to be like a console-wide rollout. I think that just makes the most sense, where basically everybody's fan speed is going to be increased. My only real concern, Sony, I'm going to be pretty upset if suddenly my PS5 starts sounding like a PS4 Pro. Okay, because that was one of the things that I was really excited about, and I've been loving it so far. My PS5 is as quiet as could be. Doesn't make any sound. It still doesn't. Doesn't matter what game I'm playing. But if after this update, suddenly I'm starting to hear like a jet engine, I'm going to be pissed. Straight up, I'm going to be pissed, because that was something that, look, I thought that this was a problem that was in the past. Now, I'm jumping to conclusions. I'm assuming that that's not what's going to happen. But there's no doubt that if they increase the fan speed, it's going to get a little bit louder. I'm hoping it's just a little bit, just barely, Like, you got to get real close to it to hear it. If that's the case, then it's fine. Spacebar, you're saying the only reason people are bringing up power still is they have nothing else to talk about, LOL, and Gen 4 SSDs get hot. The bay looks too small for one with a fan. Concerned me from day one. Yet, I'm not too familiar with it. That's what I've been hearing, is that apparently these Gen 4, like you said, these new Gen SSDs, they get really hot. And so, I just hope that honestly, guys, like, I hope Sony doesn't run into any problems. Because to imagine a situation where Sony basically has to come out and be like, okay, so we basically opted in with an SSD speed that is like way beyond, that at the time was way beyond anything, and kind of future-proofed. Now we're here, and we can't upgrade storage now. That could be a problem, man. Like, could you imagine that? Because I will admit, dude, like, at first, I didn't think the PS5 storage would be a problem, but some of these games are getting really big, dude. And it was nice to see that with Control. Remedy utilized the Kraken compression technique, so it brought the game down from 45 gigs to about 24 gigs, which is a huge difference. And that's a lot of gigs saved, right? And when you only have 667 gigabytes to work with, every gig counts. And so I just hope that they don't run into any issues, man. Better late than never. I'm totally fine with that. But hearing that report, it is a little bit concerning. It's a little bit concerning, because what if they can't stop these consoles from overheating with these SSDs? What do they do then? At that point, they would have no choice but to wait for a redesign and figure it out. You know what I mean? And that could be, you're talking about maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. Maybe it could expedite a redesign, I don't know. All speculation on my part. Josh Z, thank you so much for the generous donation, man. Thank you guys so much for all the super chats, by the way. I really appreciate the support. You're saying, I think Nintendo is the most impressive company. Honestly, they react, adapt, and innovate every generation. It is always successful, but no, they keep their stable IPs relevant despite them being decades old. Yeah, man. If there's one thing, just speaking to Nintendo, because I can tell reading a lot of your super chats, is you are a big Nintendo fan. And I'm not going to lie, like, I'm not a big Nintendo fan simply because it doesn't appeal to me. You know what I mean? It doesn't appeal to me on that level. Doesn't mean I'm against it. It just, if they ever show me something that I'm like, okay, I need to buy a Switch to play this. That new open world Pokemon game looked pretty interesting. I will admit, man, like, I do respect Nintendo for a lot of different things. And what the things you mentioned are a few of them. I think Nintendo does a really good job in preserving their IP. And like you said, they do a really good job in somehow keeping their IP like always relevant. They're like making the same games, but also making these changes. And not everybody fully agrees. Like, I have seen some people complain about Nintendo games, and I try not to speak on it too much because I have no experience with it. That's all. So like, I can't sit here and be like, oh, is Breath of the Wild overrated? I have literally no idea. Is the last Pokemon game just a lack of innovation rehash? I don't know. I can't tell you. But a lot of people, I think, really do have this love and respect for Nintendo because they don't get I don't think they get everything right. I don't think any corporation does, but there's no denying that they do find ways to persist, man. I actually thought, and this was like kind of before I was even doing YouTube or at all, or relevant at all. I actually thought the Switch was going to be a flop. I really did. I was like, this thing, I don't know what Nintendo's thinking, man, but this thing's going to be a flop. And it's like, wow, I couldn't have been more wrong. I actually remember having a conversation with my friends and like they were like, dude, you're out of your mind. Like the Switch is going to sell like crazy. And I'm like, no, you're insane. The Switch is going to flop. Watch. And then it came out and it was like, this thing is flying off the shelves and it could be Nintendo's best selling console ever. And I'm like, damn. Wow. Okay. I'm out of touch with Nintendo completely. So yeah, I do agree mostly with what you're saying, man. Nintendo is just a gaming brand that will forever be loved. They're not perfect. They make their fair share of mistakes like all of these companies do, but we cannot deny that they find a way, man. Like I really thought Nintendo was done after the Wii U. I was like, I don't know how they're going to come back. Like they're going to have to become, I remember there were conversations at that time where it's like, oh, is Nintendo going to just become a third-party publisher now? You know, it was like do or die for them. And they did, man. They did. It was sink or swim and they swam. So, Primal Plasma, you're saying, I thought Switch would flop too until I bought one. Yeah, and you know what? Before we move on to the state of play, I do want to just have a brief conversation. Also, that whole Outriders thing, again, I didn't want to speak on it too much, but I just want to end it by saying, apparently it is another third-party multi-plat game where PS5 has better performance. Now, if that's because the developers are not utilizing the Xbox Series X tools to its fullest, at this moment in time, I do not care. It's nothing against Xbox. And it's not that the Xbox version is running poorly. It's just struggling to maintain that consistent 60 FPS. That's what I've seen. Some people are leaving comments. Somebody says, I'm really impressed by the PS5 that performed the best. And the Series X is not far behind. Somebody says the Series S performance sucks. I don't know anything about that. Just seeing what people are saying about it. So this person says, great, loving it on PS5. I hope Series X owners are loving it also. I'm pretty sure they won't notice the frame drops even without variable refresh rate. And yeah, so it's not like it's bad. It's just the whole reason I'm saying this is just let's just you're saying source. I don't know if you're asking me for the source. For me, the source is Game On Daily. They apparently did a deep dive analysis of the performance. If you're talking to me, but I'm just mentioning this because guys, like, you know, if you're an Xbox fan or if you're an Xbox person through and through and you want to believe in what Microsoft did and that the results will come later on, then that's totally fine. Like I'm not against that. Like maybe it will. But what I'm saying is like, can we just please remove we can all agree we're done with the whole power narrative and conversation. Like we can just put a bow on it now. You know, and I'm just mentioning this because it's like who can have the last laugh here? And it seems like last week it was about Xbox fans having the last laugh of, the die shot of the PS5 is out. It's not full RDNA, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, how about we just look at the results? And what the results are telling me is that games look incredible. They run incredible on the PS5. I'm really enjoying it. And we're still seeing instances where, yes, the PS5 version may only be 1 to 5% better, but still, how can you see that and still talk trash? Not even talk trash, but just downplay what the PS5 is capable of. That's all I'm saying. It's a great console, okay? The Series X is a great console. I'm going to get one eventually, but the PS5 is awesome, man. It runs games great. Anyway, just to talk about the handheld for a second here, because we were talking about the Switch. Apparently, and I kind of like missed this news and I didn't really cover it because I was very caught up in a lot of other things, but apparently like a Sony employee, somebody who's in charge of some of their operations there, they gave like an interview online and they didn't tease. Maybe they kind of did. I don't know. They kind of hinted at the fact that Sony is like possibly looking into another handheld, and that's basically all they said. It's a difficult because I don't want to misquote or anything, but they basically led people to believe, based off of what they said, that Sony may actually be looking into another handheld to some extent. And I think we will see another Sony handheld, but it's going to be very different. I think that the next Sony handheld is not going to be Vita 2. It's basically going to be a portable cloud handheld console. I think that is the most logical thing. I don't think it's going to come anytime soon. I think, you also have to understand that Sony did partner with Microsoft for their cloud services, and Microsoft is all in with with xCloud. And I think Sony is aware that they need to have something to compete in that area. And I think eventually Sony will bring PlayStation Now to phones, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Sony's going to embrace the cloud more than they have. And I'm not for cloud gaming, but having it at, Microsoft did prove to me that it's okay. It can just be a great supplement, right? And I'm not against that. And so if Sony were to do a handheld, I think that, doing a cloud-based handheld would make a lot of sense. And I think that it's something that Sony would need to improve PlayStation Now dramatically to make it even worth it. But I want you guys to remember that there was a patent that was filed that Sony filed. And I think that this, even though there's a lot of patents that are filed that are like, oh, it never happens, it never sees the light of day, I really do think that this is one that probably will see the light of day. It was a while ago. It was like a year ago, maybe half a year ago, something like that, where they filed a patent for basically a cloud-based DualSense controller, which it was almost like, okay, so is this like a controller where in the middle there's like a screen and it's like it's kind of like elongated, I guess. That's something. It's worth noting that Sony is putting a lot less emphasis on the Japanese market, which we'll talk more about later, but there's no doubt that the Japanese market loves their handheld games, and I think that would be just another way for Sony to kind of remain relevant in that territory, much more relevant than they have been with, consoles. And I just think that there is a market for handhelds. I think the reason why the Vita died, I think it's obvious. Like the PSP went well, the Vita died. I'm going to tell you why the Vita died. We all know. It's because Sony basically said, okay, this is a dedicated piece of hardware that is essentially going to play AAA games that you can kind of, in the same quality level that you can expect from our console. And they tried to pair it alongside with the PS4. And it just didn't work because it's like, well, you're spreading yourself too thin with development teams, and the hardware inside of the Vita just simply does not match. It's not on par with the PS4, so it still needs its own versions of games. It can't be like, they can't be built for both the PS4 and the Vita. They have to have their own separate versions. That's why I think a cloud handheld device makes the most sense, because it's like if you can get your cloud streaming service to work much better, then again, that also implies that you would be able to access PS5 games through PlayStation Now, which maybe that'll happen in the future over time, slowly, but I don't know. I think Sony would be wise to not completely give up in the handheld market, even if it's just something that is unexpected. And even if it flops, I think they should at least try again, because the PSP was a huge success. The Vita, not so much, but still just completely conceding this entire market to Nintendo is crazy to me. It's just that's for both. I mean, even Microsoft is doing something with xCloud and phones, right? So I think Sony should do something. But anyway, guys, hit that like button to help the podcast out. I would really appreciate that. Let's see if we can get it up to 400 likes. They really do help the podcast. They're kind of critical. So hit that like button. I would really appreciate that. We're going to move on and talk about this apparently very controversial state of play that Sony had. And I definitely have some thoughts on this, because a lot of people have attempted to strong arm me into coming out here and saying, yeah, that state of play really blew. It was complete trash. It was the worst thing. And I'm not going to do that, because that's not how I feel. Okay. I can only give you my honest opinion. And if what I'm telling you, honestly, you interpret that as that's damage control, that's, you just defending, then fine. By all means, take it as you will. But I'm just going to give you the honest to God truth. The honest to God truth is as simple as this when it comes to Sony State of Play. I already established quite some time ago that state of plays are not where Sony drops big new game announcements. Like, I don't know how anybody went into this thinking you're going to see the next God of War. You're going to see a gameplay demonstration of Horizon Forbidden West, or you're going to see a new AAA game announced that's from one of Sony's first parties. When has Sony ever given you that expectation for any of their stated plays? And I'm being serious. The most we ever got, in my opinion, from a state of play, And I'm talking about the ones where they actually show off multiple games, not ones that are dedicated to, say, Ghost of Tsushima or Last of Us. The most I remember ever getting is at the end, and this was like a theme in 2020, at the end, they showed a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII of one of their stated plays, and I was like, oh, that was the big moment. And then another one was they showed another trailer for The Last of Us Part 2. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this was amazing or this was great and it was everything I wanted it to be. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying it wasn't trash to me because, like, it was literally what I expected. The only thing that makes me drop it to, if we're grading it A, B, C, or D, the only reason I'm dropping it to a C, I'm not dropping it to a D because it wasn't that bad. Like, I was excited to see more Kenna. I was excited to get another Deathloop trailer, and I was excited about that game, Sifu. And Final Fantasy VII, that was a pretty big reveal and a pretty big deal for a lot of people. See, Alex, you're saying stop, that was trash. Dude, this is what I'm saying, man. Like, okay. Here's where I'm going to get a little ranty, all right? Do you remember last May how Microsoft had their first next-gen event where they were going to show next-gen gameplay, and everybody walked away basically saying, what the hell was that, right? Like, that was trash. Do you know why people were calling that trash? Because Microsoft set up the literal opposite expectations. And I'm only mentioning this because a lot of people were saying, dude, you talk trash on Xbox's events. If this was an Xbox thing, you'd be talking trash. I would only claim something as trash if you basically misled me. And that's what Microsoft did. Go back and watch that event last year in May. They said there was going to be next-gen gameplay. They didn't show any major games, and they didn't pretty much show any gameplay at all. They even said that there was going to be Assassin's Creed gameplay, and there wasn't. And people were like, what the hell? Like, this isn't what we were told. Meanwhile, Sony's out here literally telling you in a blog post what this state of play is going to be. And basically what happens is, because people expect to see God of War, and they expect to see a gameplay demo of Horizon, and they expect to see Silent Hill, they freak out and say this is garbage. I'm not saying it was great. I'm not saying it was amazing. I am saying it was okay. It was serviceable. It was what you should have expected. And then they're like, oh, you need to demand better from Sony. No, I don't, because Sony gives me what I want, dude. Like, I have been, like, I'm not going to freak out on Sony and be like, that state of play was garbage because you didn't show me a new AAA game. Like, dude, they have multiple games coming out over the next couple of months, and they're saving their big stuff for later this year in June when they're going to need it. Why would they show a God of War gameplay demonstration on a state of play at the end of February when it would be much more intelligent for them to do that in June, when, you know, Microsoft's going to be bringing their big guns to the table, and every other publisher is going to be bringing their big guns to the table, and they're going to have to fight for that space. Now, you could make an argument. And all the people that claiming I'm damage controlling, hear me out on this one. You could make the argument that maybe there was no reason for Sony to do this. If it just led to basically them getting bad press, why did they do this? So there's a couple of things I want to say here. First of all, I do think Sony is somewhat responsible for setting this expectation, not necessarily directly, because not everybody's going to read the blog post. When people see a state of play and they know it's PlayStation, this is where Sony's reputation, I think they need to be more careful about how they do things like this, because I don't expect Sony to come out and be like, hey guys, this event's going to suck. You know, like, they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, this event's going to be terrible. It's going to be uneventful. You probably don't even want to show up. They're not going to do that, okay? But what Sony needs to be aware of is, like, Sony, look, as an entity, at PlayStation as a brand, Sony is looked at as the juggernaut, okay? Sony is looked at as they make God of War, you know, they make Spider-Man, they have these massive games, they make The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima. This is what Sony does. They do it best. And so inherently, when Sony says, come show up, even if they say, you know, we're basically going to be showing games that we've already shown and there's going to be some small announcements, even though they say that, it doesn't matter, because who are you, Sony? Who are you, PlayStation? You are the AAA guy, okay? You are the big dude. You're the juggernaut. You're the sleeping giant. And I understand that that is how people view this. And I feel like that's where it's like there's a yet another disconnect where it's like, Sony, I'm not saying you shouldn't do these state of plays. I'll offer a solution, okay? Andrew, you're saying only letdown was Kena or Kena, however you say it, not being out in March. I agree. I was really thinking that game was going to be March, but I'm glad we got a date for it either way. Here's my solution. And guys, chat, and anybody who's listening to this afterwards, please let me know in the comments. I'm just curious. I've been putting a little bit of thought into this because I was a little bit baffled. You know, I was getting a lot of people kind of fighting me, being like, no, dude, this is trash. And if you don't say this is trash, so you're saying you are wrong, MBG. Sony, they said to come see indie games. And honestly, what about the Nintendo Direct? Well, I can't speak to the Nintendo Direct, but okay, I have a compromise. I feel like I have a tangible solution for the situation, okay? And I want your guys' opinion on this. Now, I understand that it's basically going against the marketing 101, but what do you think the response to this state of play would have been if it was never announced prior? Okay, what do you think the response to this state of play would have been if when did it happen, on Thursday? Sony never said anything about it. They basically put out a blog post with a 30-minute state of play video on their channel. They just released it and dropped it out of the sky. No hype, no expectation, no time for expectation to marinate. They just drop it. I feel like even though that would result in less views, I feel like that would be a tangible solution, because what would happen is at that point, people would go into it and they would be like, oh, well, I did not know this was happening. And this is cool because they just dropped the state of play. And even though it wasn't everything I wanted it to be, and it wasn't everything I expect, well, you can't even say that. You can't say it wasn't what you expected because you didn't even know to expect a state of play. You would take it for what it is, and that's that. And if there was even just one thing there that you liked, then you can take it as a positive. You know, that to me is basically the most obvious solution, because again, like, not everybody hated it, man. Like, that's the thing, is like, one person thought it was trash, another thought it was pretty good, another thought it was okay. A lot of people were telling me that if you're a Final Fantasy fan, this was an amazing state of play. You know, as somebody who was looking forward to Kena Bridge of Spirits, as I said, it was disappointing not to get the March release date, but I loved seeing that new glimpse into the game that I'm excited for. I liked getting the Deathloop trailer because I'm going to be playing that very soon. I liked getting a release date for Kena, and there was a nice little surprise for me personally in Sifu. You know, Sifu was awesome, dude. That game looks amazing, and this is where it's like, again, people come to me and are like, MBG, Sifu is trash. That looks like Game Pass trash. Like, dude, I don't care what you think it is. I think it's amazing. You know, I'm a huge fan of martial arts, kung fu, big fan of Bruce Lee. Growing up watching Bruce Lee movies, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen, you know, Ip Man movies, just watched them recently. I saw that game Sifu and I'm like, yo, this may not be a massive AAA game, but you better believe this is a day one purchase for me. Seafood. No, it's called Sifu, S-I-F-U. And I'm just like, and that's the thing, I'm not saying that everybody needs to have that same opinion, but like, this is where these people who are screaming like, this was garbage, this was trash, they don't leave any room for people to basically say, well, I thought it was pretty good. Like, and here's what I liked about it. You know what I mean? This is where I'm saying, like, look, if the expectation for PlayStation stated plays are always going to be expect something big, then this is where Sony would be wise, in my opinion, to just don't set any expectation. You know, in my opinion, Sony made it clear you're not going to get any major bomb drop announcements at their stated plays. And because you know what's going to happen, guys. You know what's going to happen? A couple months from now, Sony's going to have their big event in June, okay? You know what? Here's a better one. Let's just say Sony does another state of play next month. I don't think they're going to. It would make no sense. But people are going to do the same thing where all those people who basically said, well, that was a disappointment, that was a letdown, they're going to get their expectations up for this next one and be like, well, this is the one where it's going to be massive. It's not going to be massive because it's a state of play. And dude, state of plays are not Sony's big events. They're just not. And you need to stop looking at it like that. If you believe that that means Sony should cancel State of Play, then that's your opinion. That's fine. You're allowed to have that. But believe me, there are millions of people who maybe not millions, but thousands of people who watch this State of Play and appreciate it for what it is. Also, Returnal, we got another look at that. That's a game I'm very much looking forward to. I'm not saying you need to love it. I'm not saying this was A tier. I'm not even saying this was B tier. But I do not think it was D or F tier. I mean, come on, man. Like, if you went into this thinking this was going to be an event, then yeah, you're going to walk away being like, this is an F tier. But this isn't an event. Why does anybody think this is an event? I don't mean to rant so much, and I know it probably sounds like damage control to people, but I'm just being honest. Like, I just felt so removed from what people were saying, because it's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. Why were people expecting this? You know, like, I even put out a video, the day of I said I was about to say the event, but the day of the State of Play, giving my expectations and some of my predictions. And if you were one of the people who watched that video, you'll know I literally was telling people, guys, like, this is not going to be big. Like, it's not going to be big. Like, and I even said multiple times, if there are new game announcements, they're going to be indie games. And, I'm sure that there were a lot of people, there were a lot of people who watched that and they were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I guess I'm just saying I wish more people would have watched that video, because it's like, guys, like, if you are somebody who was expecting anything major, I mean, the amount of people expecting God of War blew my mind, dude. Like, why do you think you're going to see God of War in the middle of February? Like, it's not going to happen, dude. Like, it's not going to happen, like, but I will admit, like, I do not agree with people who are saying it's like an A tier, or it's like a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 or even an 8 out of 10. It's not that good. I mean, it was serviceable. It was serviceable, It's all about expectations, people. That's all. If Sony basically came out and said, this is going to be a big State of Play, we're going to have some, major exciting announcements, stay tuned. I would have been like, oh, damn, like, this is going to be huge. Like, yeah, maybe we can expect God of War and Horizon and maybe something else. And then we got what we got. I would have been like, what the hell? I would have been like, yeah, that was trash, dude. But that's not what they did. And that's not what I did. And I don't know who would do that. So I know I'm really going on a tangent here. But anyway, let me talk about some of the things I did like. So Sifu looked amazing. I love what they're going for with the pretty much just hand-to-hand combat, kung fu. I'm loving it. That's going to be a day one purchase for me. I did appreciate seeing, what is my cat doing? My cat is definitely doing something he shouldn't be back there. Hopefully nothing falls. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so we got another look at Returnal, and Returnal looks pretty good, man. I like the fact that they are putting a little bit more of an emphasis on the story now and the world and, like, the mystery that's going to unfold, because I do think that for a $70 title, it better have a good story. It better have a fleshed out story. There better be a lot there. And so I do appreciate that they're kind of teasing more of it. We got another good look at Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which I think was the highlight of the show, honestly. The third-party games I wasn't too interested in because, like, there was nothing big, and it's not that they looked bad. I'm just like, I'm not, oh yeah, there were people going into this expecting Elden Ring. Like, this is where you just know people are living in a fantasy world. Like, Elden Ring was shown on Xbox's stage. Xbox has the marketing rights to Elden Ring. You're not going to see it at a PlayStation event. But I also, I'm excited for Kenna. I think it looks great, or Kena. I'm just going to call it Kenna. And I liked seeing Deathloop, and I thought that what they were doing with Final Fantasy was cool as well, even though it's not my cup of tea personally. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should give Final Fantasy VII a run. That's the thing, is like, people were saying, like, dude, Final Fantasy VII Remake is now free on PlayStation Plus for March. I should play it, but if I get that version, I'm not going to be entitled to the PS5 upgrade. And if I were to play it, I have a PS5, I would probably want to play the PS5 version. So Chris B, you're saying, I think people's experience last year has set them up for disappointment in 2021 in terms of announcements and events. Launch is over. Yeah, that's another, I think that is, another side effect as well. This is basically the first time Sony's ringing the bell to tell people to show up. You're saying, You're wrong, MBG. FNAF was amazing. It even got trending. Yeah, dude, that Five Nights at Freddy's reveal thing, man. I'm not a big fan, but dude, that has got people hyped as hell. So that was surprising. But yeah, not everybody's going to be pleased. Like you said, it's a side effect of last year the announcements were always going to be bigger and better because they have a console launch. That's not to say there's that's what I want to say here as well, is like people who think that Sony isn't going to have major reveals this year are very much being foolish. And I don't think I'm getting ahead of myself saying that. Like, Sony still has a job to do this year, and that is that they have to not only manufacture enough consoles, which they're eventually going to, but Sony needs to keep the momentum going, regardless of whether or not they have enough consoles to sell. Make no mistake, the PlayStation brand has to stay relevant. Dude, you think Sony's not going to bring some bomb drops this year? Keep in mind, and we have not talked much about Xbox during this podcast so far, and I have to mention this because it's something that people forget. Microsoft has some bombs that they are saving, okay? Like, they have Starfield. They have just Bethesda in general, all those games that they could be saving to reveal. And make no mistake, you think Sony isn't sitting back waiting to find out what Microsoft is planning on doing with Bethesda's games? Oh, they are. They're waiting just like we are, because that's going to be a big determining factor. And okay, I'll keep it to you. I'll make it as simple as this. Microsoft's going to eventually show off Starfield, you would assume this year, right? Let's just say they're going to show it off in the middle of this year, along with some more Halo. Okay, it's a pretty big 1-2 combination there. Although I would argue Halo's not coming in with an immense amount of hype. Halo's going to be coming in with an immense amount of expectation, like this better look better, right? But Starfield is going to be coming in with an immense amount of hype, and they're going to show that later this year. And I want you guys to visualize. Imagine the difference between here's 20 minutes, like a 15-minute gameplay demonstration of Starfield, and it's amazing, and people are like, "Oh my god, this is so great!" This is like blowing my mind. Imagine the difference in just tone in the room, just the energy in the room, and it's also Xbox only versus, and it's also releasing on PlayStation. See, that's it right there. Like, people don't understand. Like, Sony has to wait right now. Like, it is in their best interest to wait, because look, I know we've talked a lot about how, Xbox is a joke. They can't make good games on us, but no, dude, like, things are different this time around. Xbox has momentum right now, and they could capitalize on that momentum, or they could drop the ball. But Sony's making some polarizing announcements. Meanwhile, Microsoft is gearing up to start making some big announcements. And this is why Sony is wise to get the controversial announcements and do the controversial things now, because, dude, it is the end of February. Everybody's going to forget. Let me tell you, you think anybody who's crying about State of Play right now, you think anybody who's crying about Days Gone going to PC, you think when Sony comes out this June, shows Horizon Forbidden West gameplay and a new God of War trailer, and probably announces something else that's going to shock us all, you think anybody's going to be talking about that? Hell no, dude. Hell no. And Sony knows this. And so does Microsoft. The point is, guys, we're still talking about two juggernauts here. Just because things have been quiet and things are, quieting down, and you're saying the Xbox Series X has no hype, MBG. What are you talking about? Dude, look, I've been hard on Xbox, but no, dude. The Series X is selling, dude, and it's selling out. And it's not so much about the console, though. It's about the announcements that Microsoft has yet to make. Sony's not going to come out ahead of Microsoft. Do you guys see how quickly people forget? People forget. Like, do you not remember how half the conversation last year was, so when's Sony going to talk? What, it's basically like a game of chicken. Who's going to go first? Dude, it's going to continue this year. It's a game of chess, man. It's a game of who's going to go first and what moves that they're going to make and how do we respond to these moves. And, that's why I'm not I'm not jumping to any conclusions right now. Like, people want me to freak out and spaz. I'd be like, oh my God, the direction PlayStation's going in. What are we going to do? Like, no, let's just calm down. Okay. Like, the PS5 is going to do just fine. Sony's got a ton of games in development, and they're still looking pretty good for this year. Like, that's another thing too. Like, people want me to be mad and upset. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, I've enjoyed what I've played on the PS5 so far. I'm still enjoying it. Granted, things are a little bit slower right now, but after March, dude, I'm looking at Returnal, then I'm looking at Deathloop, and then I'm looking at Ratchet and Clank, and I'm going to assume that Sony, during that time when I'm playing those games, is going to have some major announcements, because that's going to be the time for them to shine, man. That's going to be when when the juggernauts come out to battle, and this is just how it is. It's always like this, guys. Like, it's always a slow build up, and another thing as well is Sony's next fiscal year, I think their next fiscal year starts April 1st. So that's another reason why they had to get out in front and kind of get the bad news out now. Or the not the bad news, but the controversial news. That's why they didn't double down on their state of play, because no. So let me ask you, going forward with state of play, how many people do you think are still going to expect massive announcements from state of play? Dude, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, I almost do feel like Sony should cancel state of play, because it's just like, dude, you're not going to win anymore, man. Like, you could, unless Sony should either take my advice and just drop them on people's heads. Here's a state of play. Boom. They didn't even tell you. Like, here it is right now. Watch it. You don't even have time to have an expectation. Just watch it, right? If you want. They should either do that, or they should literally just come out and start underselling to potentially over-deliver. Now, that's a tough line to walk, because if you undersell it too much, then nobody's going to tune in. Like, if Sony comes out and they say, this isn't really going to be big, so keep your expectations in check, people would appreciate that, but people wouldn't tune in, So it is what it is, guys. Like, I'm very much looking forward to the coming months, because there's going to be, guys, like, I know things are slow right now, and I know that things are not as on fire as they were towards the middle and the end of last year. But guys, like, big things are coming for both consoles, and Sony and Microsoft. You best believe they're in training mode right now, man. It's like Rocky. I feel like I reference Rocky every week, but they're both in their own zones, training the way they need to train, getting ready for the big fight, and we are approaching that. And there will be some announcements and some things that we learn about on our way to the middle of this year. But basically, the train has not left the station, people. And when the train leaves the station, it's not going to stop, and it's not going to slow down until the year comes to an end. And that's just how it goes, man. It's a slow build of momentum, but once it gets going, it's going to get going, and it's not going to stop, and it's going to be fun as hell, man. And that's the thing. It's like, that's what I love most about this, is the competition in it all. Like, I'm glad that Sony saved some stuff. You could tell they're saving a lot. And I'm glad Microsoft is too, because it's like, it's going to be like a duel. Like, who's going to have the bigger announcements? Who's going to one up the other, and that's always an exciting thing. We saw that last year, the back and forth between Sony and Microsoft, and it's going to continue this year. And in the meantime, I got my PS5. I got some games I'm looking forward to. I'm sure Series X owners are doing just fine right now. I'm assuming that they're going to want some big games as well to play this year. So it is what it is. If you thought State of Play was trash, I'm not here to tell you that you're not entitled to your opinion, because of course you are. I'm just here to maybe kind of alter your perception, where it's like, look, if you are somebody who genuinely feels that this was a terrible State of Play, and you're like, I can't believe how bad that was, take my advice going forward, honestly. And I'm being genuine right now. Either stop watching State of Plays, or anytime there's a State of Play, have literally no expectation. Like, literally assume it's going to be garbage, because if you do that, then you cannot be let down. Okay. So that's my advice. But as for me and my personal opinion on it, it was serviceable. It was fine. I give it a C. It served its purpose, considering where we are right now. And it is what it is. And so I'm looking forward to what's next, man. Apparently Microsoft is going to have some kind of event. Next month, towards the end of the month. And I don't know if it's going to be big or not. Apparently there's like a a lawsuit that's being filed against Bethesda, which could get in the way of the timing of when this purchase is finalized. Mr. Clutch, you're saying, MBG, why do you only get hyped for the big stuff? Can't people appreciate the small stated plays? Well, no, that's what I'm saying, dude. Is like, I didn't overhype myself for this at all. Like, dude, I was pretty chill. I'm like, okay, state of play. I hope I actually posted on Twitter, and I know not everybody on my channel follows me on Twitter, but I literally posted that if I see one thing, just one thing during this 30-minute state of play that catches my interest or leaves me feeling good or excited, then I'm happy. Because, dude, people are forgetting that we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and, you know, development timelines are being kind of thrown for a loop that they've never been thrown in before, and adjustments have to be made on the fly. And I'm sure every developer and publisher is doing their best, but that's another thing where it's like, I did not, you know, that was my only expectation, pretty much, is just look, like, if I see one thing, and I saw about 2 to 3 things that left me feeling good. Sifu alone was like, okay, excited for that. So I'm just saying, like, I didn't have these overwhelming high expectations, and I didn't need to see big things to feel elated. Now, if you think that maybe I should give it a B or an A rating, well, that's your opinion. I don't think it was a B rating. I don't think it was an A rating. I think it was a C. You know, I think a D would have been if there was no Kenna. I think a D would have been if Sifu wasn't there, you know, because I thought that looked awesome. I think a D would have been no Deathloop and no, you know, and maybe like the only major thing is just the Final Fantasy thing. Like, that would have been like a D, because it's like there was literally nothing here, you know? So it is what it is. You know, again, everybody's going to have their opinions, and I'm not here to tell you what your opinion should be. I'm just here to tell you what my opinion is, and you can make of that what you will. So we're going to go over one of the final topics here, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it simply because I did do a dedicated video to it just yesterday, but it does need to be talked about a little bit more extensively, and that is Sony apparently, you know, there's a misconception here. People believe that Sony has shut down their Japan studio. That's not what happened. Sony has reorganized, and I think downsized is the best word to use, where they have, you know, they've pretty much gotten rid of the main Japan studio development team responsible for making original games. And the reason for this is because Sony is putting a major focus and they've already shifted, but they're continuing to shift their focus onto, you know, Western game development and appealing to not just the West, but having a more global appeal. And I think this is a double-edged sword. You know, I've seen dude, when I made that video yesterday, people are very upset. Now, here's the thing we have to understand, okay? There's a few things. Team Asobi is basically Japan studio now, okay? They're the Japan studio. They are a studio that's run in Japan, and they are going to focus on Astrobot. The good news here is it really sounds like Astrobot is getting its own AAA treatment, which is exciting to me. Like, even if it's not, they're continuing Astrobot, which I love because I think it's great. By the way, guys, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get the 400 likes before this podcast ends. I hate begging for likes, but it helps, you know? And it makes me feel better when I see it, the number climb. Every content creator likes to see the like number climb. It lets, you know, it's an indicator that you guys like what we're doing here. So thank you guys for getting me to 400 likes. But I want to see more Astrobot. And we also need to understand that the Sony Japan X-Dev team, essentially the support team, in other words, the team that helped work on Bloodborne, that helped work on Demon Souls, and that will continue to help work on other games, they're still intact. The only team that's not there anymore is the one that was focused on creating original content, such as, you know, Ape Escape. And I think that basically I think the people who are most upset are the people who have been gaming on PlayStation the longest, because the honest to God truth, guys, is that this studio was just not producing games that get anywhere near the level of success that most of Sony's other studios do. Now, I'm not saying that means that they deserve to be axed. I feel for the development team, and I think that the major concern here is, like, you know, Sony. My stomach is growling, man. I am starving for some reason. But the major focus on triple A mass wide appeal games, it's like a double-edged sword, because it's like people think that when Sony says that we focus on the big AAA games and we want those types of games produced for the majority of our studios. They think that that's like, oh, so you basically want to be the next Disney and want, like, no, it's not necessarily the Hollywood treatment per se. I do understand the concern there, but they're talking about the games that frankly I am most excited about, like the games that matter most to me. That doesn't mean I don't care about the smaller games. That doesn't mean that I don't care about original games, because of course I do. In creative games that go against the grain, I think Sony absolutely needs to make sure that remains a priority, whether or not their Japan studio is there or not. That just goes for any publisher. You can't just keep doing cookie cutter mold stuff. And I think Sony at this point kind of leaves that, like the super like out there stuff and risky stuff and stuff that's just not widely appealing. I think at this point they're going to kind of delegate that to second party and third party partnerships. And they want their internal studios to really be focused on the bigger stuff. So it calls into question what's going to happen to Media Molecule. What's going to happen to Pixel Opus? Is Sony going to try to mold these studios into AAA studios now? Are they going to allow them to remain like these kind of outlier, more creative, smaller studios, or are they going to downsize and shutter them too? We don't know, but you're saying Sony is trying to leave Japan while Xbox is trying to get in. You said MBG, you are wrong. Sony didn't give them the budget. Sony gave Ben 70 million, and they give nothing to Japan studios. Well, the truth is, we have to understand, we don't know what Sony did with Japan studio. We don't know what games they were working on that got canceled. We don't know how much money they dumped in the Japan studio just to basically not get the results they were looking for. We don't know. I have no doubt in my mind that multiple games were axed that were currently in development at Japan studio that we just had no idea about and never knew about and never will know about. I have no doubt in my mind. But you just have to kind of trust that Sony knows what they're doing here. And this is just a matter of, like, do you have faith in Sony? Do you have faith in the leadership at Sony right now that they are not, like, is this a huge mistake or not? I don't know. I can't say that definitively. I'm going to try to not jump to conclusions and assume that this is just like, you're just going to start closing down studios now that don't produce cookie cutter mold AAA games. No, because honestly, the big, massive games that Sony produces, even though they can kind of be looked at as like, oh, they're cookie cutter, like look at Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, no, dude, I don't know. I don't agree with that, man. Like, those are amazing games. Like, I want more of those games. They don't have to be identical, but I just like, I like the formula that Sony has. And I just don't know that, I buy this idea that you couldn't just keep this Japan studio going just to kind of make a Gravity Rush. Like, you couldn't afford that. That's too much. That's the part I don't believe. Where, like, this is more of like a business, like, we want to save money and stop spending money here. You know what I mean? And I get it. It's business. That's their job. They have to do that. But I do feel sorry and I feel bad for people who, like, grew up with these games and they loved these games. But these games didn't sell, guys. Like, we have to acknowledge that. Like, these games did not sell. Why is everybody saying big announcement? I don't know if it's one person that I'm seeing multiple times saying big announcements for Sony on April 1st. Potentially. I mean, that's the start of their next, business fiscal year. So it's very possible that there could be some big announcements, but ultimately I'm not losing sleep over this. I do think it's disappointing. I'm not trying to spin it as a good thing because it's not. You never want to see a studio shuttered or whatever, but do you remember when, you know what this reminds me of? Do you remember when Microsoft shut down Lionhead Studios and it was like a big deal? Like, everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Like, this studio's dead. They had a great heritage over there at Xbox. They're responsible for the Fable games. I guess Fable's dead. And then we found out later on, granted it took a couple years, but they were actually planning on buying another studio, probably a more competent studio, I guess, at this time, that being Playground Games. And then they're giving them a AAA budget, a massive budget to make a Fable game, and it's like, Well, I mean, would that have happened if they didn't axe Lionhead? Granted, we have no idea what this Fable game is going to turn out to be like, but let's assume it's great, right? And it's like, oh my God, this is the return to Fable that everybody's been waiting for. Then ultimately, the decision to get, shut down Lionhead, for as devastating as it was to Xbox fans at the time, proved to be a good one and a smart one. And so it's like, I'm just going to try to, look at it from the perspective like, look, it is disappointing. It does suck. And, Sony's clearly not going to be doing too much in Japan now, development wise, but maybe this will lead to something better. You know what I mean? Maybe this will ultimately lead to something better. So I don't know. That's just me trying to see the glass half full. And we will ultimately have to wait and see what comes of it. So yeah, it is what it is. We will find out more about what Sony's long-term plans are throughout this generation. I do believe April 1st, anytime after April 1st. I think Sony basically decided to make, like, look, I want to let you guys know now, excuse me, just anticipate some more polarizing news. I'm not saying this as if I know, because I don't, but do not be surprised if we continue to get more polarizing news throughout March. I say this because, guys, from a business perspective, the next fiscal year starts on April 1st, and Sony is going to make sure that they do not have any bad news to share after April 1st. So it's a possibility, I personally think Sony's waiting to see if Microsoft has anything up their sleeve for March regarding the Bethesda deal, and they may have something ready to go to respond accordingly, potentially. I don't know. That's just pure speculation on my part. I know a lot of people are like against Jim Ryan and his vision and stuff, and it's just like he's not, he's certainly not doing optics wise. He's definitely not on the level of other PlayStation leaders before him. But I'm not convinced yet that he's going to run PlayStation into the ground. Okay, I'm not convinced yet. I don't think he's going to. I have to think logically here, and we're going to find out in the next couple years, whether he's really like, the Antichrist for PlayStation or not. But right now, Sony's on track to deliver some great games. I've been playing some great games, and we're going to see. And if he turns out to be the worst thing that ever happened to PlayStation, then we will talk about that when we get there. So, final topic. This is a doozy. I actually have a separate video that's going to go out on this later, so be sure to check it out if you want. But final topic, Kojima's next game. Yes, so this is an interesting one, guys, that kind of blew my mind. So we all are aware that Stadia is pretty much dead now, and pretty much not doing anything in terms of game development. They shuttered all their studios. They canceled all their projects. Apparently, one of the projects that was canceled was a Hideo Kojima developed episodic horror game that was going to be a Google Stadia exclusive. Now, I want you to really let that marinate for a moment here. Could you just imagine what that announcement would have been like? I would have been utterly devastated. Utterly devastated. Because that's just not a thing that should ever exist. And we do have some evidence of this being true. This is a report that came from VGC, but if you recall, about like a year ago or something, or like 6 months ago, Kojima acknowledged that a recent project of his was canceled, and he didn't give any more knowledge on that or information, but apparently this was the project that was canceled. Now, there is a lot of speculation that's currently going on here due to this, because people are now thinking, well, okay, Kojima is clearly comfortable developing a game in the cloud. So what are the chances that Microsoft, when they found this out, they basically reached out to him and are like, we have xCloud. Why don't you come work with Xbox? I see you keep, is Kojima working with Xbox? Well, let me, I'm going to bring up an image here. Give me a second to bring it up. I want to show it to you guys. Okay, we'll do it live. Just give me a second. I'm looking for it now. I know it's on my computer. It's an image of Phil Spencer. Come on, where is it? I know I didn't delete it. I'm getting really annoyed because I can't find it. It was an image of Phil Spencer recently where he was conducting an interview, and a lot of people were talking about this. And what's crazy to me is a lot of people are like, "No, dude, you're reaching. That's not gonna happen." Like, he's not teasing anything in the background. Like, do you guys realize like he literally did this like 2 or 3 times before? Like, he had like an Xbox Series S just sitting in the back of his room. Why can't I find it? Like, you got to be kidding me right now. I know that I have this image in my computer and I can't find it. Maybe I can just look for it on the fly because I want to show it to you, because it's like there's literally a Xbox Lite that's being like, it's like this. I got to show it to you guys before I end this. I do have a video going out on it too, so you'll see it there. Primal Plasma, you're saying, MBG, I took a chance and signed up for Amazon Luna, played Metro Exodus. Look out for cloud gaming. It's going to sneak up on us. It's not that bad. I mean, I do believe that it's probably better than it. I mean, I know it's better than it used to be, and it's probably going to only get better, but I don't know, man. When it comes, I mean, maybe like some gaming experiences can be fine in the cloud. Like an episodic game in the cloud, that's fine. You know, like that. I mean, it's an episodic game. But like a shooter, anything that's fast-paced, anything that's action, I don't know, man. You tell me to stop saying like. Am I saying like a lot? I don't mean to do that. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to look this image up. Let me see. Phil Spencer Kojima. I bet you it'll be like the first picture that comes up. Yep, here it is right here. Let me get this image on here real quick, and I'm going to bring it up because I want to examine this image with you guys live, and I want to see what you think. Like, if I'm crazy, or if you think it's just like, all right, I'm going to bring the image up now. This better show up. I'm going to be mad. Where is it? Dude, what is going on right now? I'm actually getting frustrated okay. I don't know what's happening. Apparently I can't do this while OBS is up or whatever. So anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, in this image, I will just describe it to you because it's apparently the only way I'm going to make this happen. Okay, so this image is of Phil Spencer in clearly one of his bedrooms or an office room. And in the back, he has multiple shelves. And there's a lot of stuff on these shelves. There's a Switch. And this is all stuff people pointing out. There's a box art of Sekiro. There's Watch Dogs. And in the middle, and this is easily the thing that your eye is immediately going to gravitate towards. And he was also sure not to get in the way of this. Like, he's sitting with it basically right next to his shoulder. Like, it looks like it was, he angled his camera this way purposely. There's a bright light of an Xbox logo, and literally right next to it, the Ludens statue. That is the mascot for Kojima. And it's worth noting that Phil Spencer has done this multiple times in the past where he has teased things out in the background of his office or wherever he's doing these video calls from, you know, of stuff that was going to be announced later on. Also, how is the stream for you guys right now? Is it messing up? Because I'm getting a notification from YouTube that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. So hopefully that's not something that I'm going to be ending the stream soon anyway. So I'm not really worried about it at this point. Hopefully it's not affecting you guys. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions and say this confirms it. You're saying it's blurry. All right, I do apologize. I don't know what's going on. I've been having a lot of issues recently, actually. I literally couldn't stream my reaction to the state of play because my computer literally just like broke. It just wouldn't process it. My CPU was like maxed out at 100%, and there was like no reason for it. And now I'm having more issues. So it may be on YouTube's end. I don't know, because here's the thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, dude, you got to upgrade your PC. That's why you can't like live stream these events. Like, dude, I literally live streamed the entirety of the Game Awards, which was like over a 3-hour event with no issues whatsoever. So I don't think it's my PC. I upgraded my internet to the best money could buy, in my area. So at this point, I don't know what the hell the problem is anymore. I'm just tired of it. But yeah, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions and assume that this confirms it, but I want to ask you guys. I want to ask you guys your opinion. How would you feel if it was announced that Kojima's next project is an Xbox exclusive and it happens to be maybe like a horror title? I would be happy that it's not Google or Amazon or anybody else, but man, I would feel like, Sony, what are you doing, man? How are you letting Kojima go to the other side, bro? I would buy an Xbox for sure. I love Death Stranding, man. And Kojima's probably my favorite game creator ever. Like, the Metal Gear Solid series is the best. A lot of people wouldn't care. So I'm seeing a lot of people saying it's fun. I wouldn't be like mad or anything. I would just be very surprised. I'm not taking sides, dude. I'm just saying, like, come on, you're going to make it sound like Kojima isn't synonymous with PlayStation. I'm not taking sides, man. Like, I would literally go buy an Xbox and I would play Kojima's next game on that Xbox and I'd probably love it. I'm just saying, like, it would be quite a shocker. Like, it would be a big moment, man, because Kojima's like not a Bethesda, right? Kojima Productions, Kojima Productions is a studio that has been heavily speculated that, Sony's going to buy them, right? Like, and to go from that speculation to, it turns out he's making an Xbox exclusive, it's a pretty far leap, it's a pretty far leap. Saying you only care about a game if it's PS exclusive and if it's not, it's a bad thing. No, it's not, dude. I'm not saying that. No. See, this is where you're misinterpreting me. It would be a bad thing if Kojima's next game was a Stadia exclusive. I'm literally happy that it got canceled because that would have, screw Stadia, okay? I'm glad that it's basically going away. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would much rather see games go exclusive to Xbox than ever go exclusive to, like, Amazon or Google or any other, I don't know. No. But yeah, we're going to have to see what ends up coming of that. I mean, guys, look, I'm looking at this image and all I can think to myself is, yep. This is, a lot of people are saying like Death Stranding is going to go to Xbox. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, maybe Sony would allow that. I'm pretty sure Sony owns the Death Stranding IP, and I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like, would Sony put Death Stranding on Xbox? I don't think so. So I don't know. I think it's just more likely that, if Kojima was looking for a publisher to get on board with his next project, and basically Google stepped in and they're like, yo, we'll publish your game, make it Stadia exclusive. He's like, okay, I'm interested in the cloud. And then it got canceled. He's going to look for another publisher, and maybe Xbox is that publisher, You're saying Herman Hulst is really good friends with Kojima. The Decima engine is Gorilla, Koji Pro now. That is, yeah, see, that's what I mean, though, is that, like, there's just so many bridges there, Death Stranding reference there, between Kojima and Sony, that it would be really weird to just see him come out and be like, hey, here's my next project, and it's Xbox only, that would be so crazy. Like, that would be like, whoa, like, that's a shocker, man. Like, I would have never expected that. So we'll have to see, I'm very interested in what Kojima's next game is, dude, like, very much. And, it would be a big deal if it was an Xbox exclusive. I think it would be a loss if Sony wasn't able to secure another publishing deal with him. But who knows? All right, so I'm going to move on now to Q&A. So let's do a Q&A to end the podcast like we normally do. This is definitely a longer pod. I mean, they're all pretty much long. At this point, the average duration of my podcasts are certainly over 2 hours, between 2 and 2.5 hours. So any questions you guys have, feel free to ask. Hey, MBG, have you ever played on PC? Not really. No, I mean, I maybe played like small like Flash games on PC, but I've never actually like gotten into PC gaming where I'm like I have to now acknowledge the specs of my rig and figure out what I'm going to do and install this and install. I never did that. Do I think Starfield will be on PlayStation? I think it will be. I think it will be. But if it's not, I mean, I wouldn't be. I'm like 50-50 with that. You know what I mean? Like I'm just kind of like, if it is, it is. If it's not, it's not. I think like if it's not, I'd be like, that makes sense. Microsoft wants to leverage this as a Xbox only game, an Xbox ecosystem game. But I wouldn't be shocked if it did come to PlayStation either. So, do you think Deathloop could launch on Game Pass and PC the same day as PS5? No, not unless Sony signed off on it, which they won't. But I think it will eventually, once it's done being a timed exclusive for the PS5. I think both of those games will make their way to Game Pass. Tsushima's seismic success may have a big cost. Does Sony feel that they can represent Japanese culture respectfully and profitably without Japanese studios? They'll end up an exclusive Western company. I don't think it's just that though, man. Like the truth is, like PlayStation, I think this has more to do with the console and just their games in general. I mean, there may be truth to what you're saying, but I think Sony's like, we don't really sell that well in Japan anymore. Like consoles, their games are exclusive. And so if they're not selling many consoles in Japan, then inherently they're not going to sell many games. And I think that that's just a 1-2 combination to basically be like, okay, we're going to focus more heavily on the markets where we are very popular and do sell. That's my thought process behind it. I think that's why they're basically not abandoning Japan, but they're like, Japan is no longer a priority for Sony, period. It's just not. I mean, that's been obvious for some time, but especially now. I think there was like an internal power struggle, and I think the West won this one. Question, what is your favorite PS exclusive and why? I don't know, man. I think at this point it has to be God of War. I mean, The Last of Us was amazing. Bloodborne was phenomenal. Ghost of Tsushima was incredible, but I don't know, man. Just something. I like them all. Spider-Man, but God of War, man. I don't know. That's a game that really just sticks out in my mind the most. How's the dad life treating you, MBG? Is there a certain game you are looking forward to playing with your kid? The dad life is treating me fine. It's, been busy. Been kept very busy lately. Probably lacking some sleep, but it's okay. So it's been going good. And there's a lot of games, Would you guys be surprised if I told you this is not my first child? Would that be like a shocker to everybody here? Because you're saying like what are you're saying what are certain games you're looking forward to playing with your kid? What if I told you I had multiple kids and they're all addicted to Xbox and Nintendo? Would that shock you guys? Wouldn't that be the most ironic thing in the world? How is your son doing, man? And is your wife doing well? Hope all is great at the moment. Things are going a lot better, for sure. Everything is going well now. I've been thinking like maybe I should like share like a more meaningful update with you guys because of all the support and help you've shown. But it's just, I try not to get too personal. It's just a comfort thing for me. Like I try to just keep it. This is MBG on this YouTube channel. This is the brand. You know what I mean? It always makes me a little bit nervous to kind of delve into more personal territory, but I can confirm things are going much better now. That day that, I got more personal that day than I normally ever do. And, it's just a situation where I was like, like I gotta because I know that, because I had to do that because I know everybody's going to sense it in my voice. Like they're going to hear that there's something wrong. And I'm like, rather than having people speculate what's going on, I'd rather just be like, look, this is what's happening, but things are so much better now. And I'm so grateful for that. MBG, will you do giveaways? I don't know. I try not to do giveaways because I don't know. I feel like there's nothing wrong with them. I just try to make any interest as organic as possible. Like I don't want somebody to just tune in because they might win something. You know what I mean? Do you think Jim Ryan will be a disaster to PlayStation? We should organize to fire him. It's too soon to say. I don't think so. We have to see how it plays out. I'm willing to give the guy a chance. I will admit, like, he's definitely taking a very business-oriented approach. Can't fault him for that. That's his job, just like Phil Spencer's doing with Xbox. But my only concern is keep the console a priority because that's my favorite place to play. and deliver the great games. If you can do those two things, you're fine in my book. That's why I've been giving Microsoft credit. They have been prioritizing their console. They didn't let it take a complete back seat. Now all they got to do is deliver the great games, and if they can do that, hey, I'll feel much differently about Microsoft. At this point, I'm just waiting for the games from Microsoft, and Xbox or PlayStation has been delivering those games, and they're going to continue to do so. So if something starts to suffer there, then am I looking forward to Diablo 2 Resurrected? Unfortunately, no. It's not a game I'm looking forward to. And I'm just getting to the comments now of what I said earlier. I'm shocked. Shocker. Yes, I'm shook. No, you said a year ago you had 8 kids. Okay, I do not have 8 kids. That was not true. But who knows what I just said? Is it true? Is it not? Do I have multiple children? Do I actually have 3 Switches in my home? Do I actually have multiple Xboxes? Are my children addicted to Xbox and Game Pass? Is this the root cause of my animosity towards Xbox? Could it possibly be that all I ever wanted was my children to experience PlayStation greatness, but they can't because I was the one. I was the one who infected them with Xbox, and they're all addicted to it now. And I can't get them to come over to the other side now. I did this to myself. Would you be willing to stream with subs? I don't know. Maybe eventually. I do like to keep a more personal. I try to keep my gaming more just for me. You know what I mean? We'll see though. You know, there's a lot of room for growth in the future and things to change. Let's see. I'm not answering that. Happier grading state of play. Happier grading state of play than parenting skills. Let me see. Will you ever do a podcast with Rich of Review Tech USA? I mean, I don't know, man. Does he do podcasts? I've noticed streams from him a few times, and he like gets shirtless, and there's something going on with horses there. I don't know, man. I'm not one for collabs too often. I'm not completely opposed to them. I think it's just circumstantial, but I don't know. I mean, if it makes sense, maybe we could do that. Do you think Sony and Microsoft can swap IPs like Sony can trade Sunset Overdrive for Hellblade? No, I do not think that will ever happen. The market will speak, confuses money and gamers, people, power. Learn from Justice League that already made money. It wasn't buying stuff, but organizing a movement that forced the studios in. And yeah, dude, I do agree. I will admit I didn't really acknowledge that aspect of it too much. I just think that like there has to be an obvious movement that just kind of organically sprouts. And right now, I don't think that there's an organic movement sprouting. I don't know why I said it like that. Sprouting of the larger PlayStation community gathering together, the larger gaming community, and basically all saying to Sony, we do not want Days Gone or other PlayStation games going to PC. I'm just not seeing that. We are seeing a small group of very angry console gamers and, I guess you could say passionate PlayStation fans saying that the same exact thing happened with Microsoft, where it was a small group of Xbox fans, and those Xbox fans realized that you are fighting a losing battle, and look at where we are years later. They're still buying their consoles, and we're all still just playing our games. So I do agree that there has to be a level of like, we need to speak and express our concern, and sometimes we have to, make it very clearly known to these entities, these companies, what we want, but the idea of organizing a movement, I think it has to come organically. And that organic aspect, it requires, in order for these companies to acknowledge it, it requires numbers. It requires mass numbers. And that has to happen organically. You know what I mean? To where just a large enough group of people all just collectively at the same time say like, this sucks. Look at what happened with the Xbox One launch. That's another good example of like, dude, like everybody was like, nope, we don't want that. We don't want this now. Whatever this is, we don't want it. Change it. And it was like, yeah, you didn't have to ask anybody to say that. They all just said it. How excited am I for Deathloop? I'm actually looking forward to it quite a bit. I can't say that it's looking like phenomenal to me. Like, oh man, this is one of my most hyped, but it looks really good. It looks like it has a lot of potential, and I'm interested in it. I think it'll be the May game that I play. The game that I cover in May and play. Do you think a Sony character could come to Smash Bros? I don't know, man. I think at this point it's possible. I think anything is possible. Sony's putting some of their games on PC, and maybe next they'll put some characters in a Smash Bros. Maybe we could see Kratos in Smash Bros. I'm trying not to to lose my thing here because it's very easy. Let me see. Do you? Okay, I got that one already. Does MBG have multiple wives? I can confirm I do not have multiple wives. I'm not a believer in that. I don't roll that way. So maybe another important question answered. I think a lot of people are sleeping on London Studio. I hope they I hope they reboot 8 Days for PS5. I'm stuttering a little bit here. Yeah, dude, I think London Studio is working on a AAA title for PS5, and I think people are going to be quite surprised when they see it. That's my thought on that. I see like people putting the mind blown emojis like of what I said earlier. Yeah, I'll let you guys be the judge as to whether or not there's truth in that. I got to keep some secrets, right? So maybe it is. Maybe it would go a long way in explaining a lot of the emotional, the emotional the emotionally charged rants. You're saying imagine a collaboration of MBG with Griffin Gaming singing praises of PC. I don't think I would ever collab with Griffin Gaming. I think he has his own flavor of content where he likes to dismantle a lot of things that other people are saying on the internet and point and make fun. And, it is what it is. We see that all the time. It's not like he's doing anything new. We see it all the time, so I can't say I would collab with Griffin Gaming. MBG, as an estimation, when do you think Horizon Forbidden West will release? If Jim Ryan was very serious about the second half of 2021 release dates, then I think it could be a September title, I hope. So just to speak on that, because I did put that in the title and I haven't really mentioned it, I do think Horizon, I'm still leaning more towards Horizon will launch this year. I think it's just going to be the big holiday November title. I think if Horizon is going to launch in 2021, it's going to launch in November. And if it can't hit that November date, then it's going to be forced to be early 2022. And I think we could see worst case scenario in early 2022, we could see Horizon Forbidden West, and then in late 22 is the big holiday title, God of War. Because I can tell you right now, I really was a believer that God of War was going to release this year, and then it just kind of hit me like, no, it's not. It's just not. It's not. It's not. Like, once I saw Gran Turismo get delayed, I'm like, okay, yeah, God of War's not coming out this year. Because I was under the impression that like Gran Turismo is coming out this year, Horizon's still on track for this year, Ratchet and Clank's coming out soon. And then, I'm like, okay, so maybe it's possible that God of War can. And then once I saw like, oh, Gran Turismo got delayed just like that. I don't think God of War is coming out this year. I do think Horizon will though. Have I played Valheim? Is that what's Valheim? No, I have not. I'm actually not sure what it is. Am I going to play Starfield? Maybe. I have to see what it looks like first. Let me see. Why don't you do a podcast with other people? I don't know, man. It's nothing personal against anybody. I don't know. When is Keanu Reeves coming into the podcast? Yeah, I don't know, man. I never heard from him. I guess after I trashed Cyberpunk, it was safe to say that was never going to happen. I don't know. I don't have anything against bringing anybody on or anything or appearing as a guest. It's just, I just like to do what I'm comfortable with. I'm more of an I'm very much an introvert, man. It may not seem like it, but I don't socialize like that much. And so I don't know. It's just, it always feels like maybe, maybe we can, saying, is it you or do we not have many Xbox release dates? No, we really don't. I don't think we have release dates really at all. MBG, don't you think this was it was dishonest for Sony to say all these games were coming in 2021 knowing they weren't, just to build up hype for the PS5? No, I mean, like, here's the thing though. Regardless of whether it's dishonest or not, Sony as well as Microsoft and anybody else can immediately get away with it because they can just be like, oh, well, COVID and CV and pandemic, so sorry. And nobody will blame them. So if it was calculated, they did it at the right. Like, this is the one time where it's like, okay, you can get away with it. You'll get a pass for both Sony and Microsoft, But any other time, I would agree. I'd be like, oh, I don't know, man. Last of Us 2 Remastered Edition, it's probably going to happen. But anyway, that's going to have to do it, guys. My voice is starting to go, and I am extremely hungry. So I hope you did enjoy the podcast. I sincerely mean that. I'm trying to do a better job at not getting overly emotional and worked up all the time. It doesn't mean I won't rant, but I'm trying to be more open to listening and seeing things from multiple angles and not being so locked in to one mindset. And hopefully you guys can appreciate that. And, I think that we covered a wide array of topics today, and I think that we handled a polarizing week. I think we handled it in a pretty good way here with this podcast to end not only this week. Well, it's technically a new week, but you know what I mean. I mean, who looks at Sunday as a new week? I don't think anybody does, realistically speaking. But to end the week and to end this month, and we're going to go into March, and I don't know what to expect from March. I'm going to do my best to just keep grinding out the content. I've been doubling up on content recently. I probably won't be able to keep up with that entirely. Also, big shout out to Devil Shooter 126. Thank you so much, man, for week over week doing timestamps. You are literally a lifesaver for not only me, but the entire community. And, if I feel I probably should be doing more, but here's a big shout out to you, man. And everybody give your thanks and give your praise to Devil Shooter for doing that, because he really comes through. And also for anybody, I see every week, some of the top comments immediately right after the podcast comes out is, timestamps. Where are the timestamps? They are coming. All right. So rest assured, like, they happen each week. Devil Shooter just needs a little bit of time. So just be patient. They'll be there. And so thank you so much, man. And huge shout out to all of my members. For those who are still here, who are not members, if you are interested in helping support this channel and the content directly, consider becoming a channel member. It really goes a long way. It really helps. You do get some exclusive perks. I do apologize to my members who are here listening right now. I have not been able to fulfill my end of the bargain recently with the podcasts, but things have been absolutely insane the past couple months. So hopefully you'll understand that. And so, thank you guys so much. Make sure you leave a like on the podcast before you head out. We are at 476 likes. Let's see if we can nudge it over the edge and get it to that 500 like mark. Let's get 500 likes. Really appreciate that. But that does it, guys. I will catch you probably tomorrow or certainly sometime in the upcoming week with some content. And we'll be back here same time, same place next week. Until next time, guys, take care.